I think everybody's ready to go. This time we'll ask Jerry if he'll give our invocation and our pledge of allegiance.
Let us pray. Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for last night's sleep, this morning early rising. We thank you for our health, strength, the activity of our limbs. Lord, we thank you for just keeping us and protecting us from hurt, harm, and danger. We ask that you continue to give us knowledge, wisdom, but most of all, Lord, give us understanding. Lord, we ask you to be with the bereaved families and pick them up where they're down. Let them know earth has no sorrows that heaven cannot heal. We ask you to heal the sick from the crown of their head to the sole of their feet. Lord, we ask that you bless each and every one that's here tonight. Bless those that had a desire to be here, but for some reason not. Lord, we ask you to continue to give this board the knowledge, the understanding, and the decision-making to continue to move Prince Edward County forward in a positive way. Lord, and during these times, especially this season, let's not forget the reason for the season, the birth of Jesus Christ. Lord, now we ask that you take us into this meeting. Let us agree to disagree. And Lord, now we ask that these blessings and all others in thy most holy and precious name. And we all said, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any conflict of interest this evening with anything? If not, we're going to move on to recognitions. I think that I'm pretty sure we have one this evening. Doug, I'm going to turn it over to you for a moment.
Yes, sir, and I will say a few words, and I'm going to ask you, Mr. Chairman, to join me down here. We have a very special presentation tonight to one of our longtime retiring employees. Coy W. Leatherwood has served as building official of Prince Edward County since April 1st of 1985. And digging around the state, I found out that as of right now, he is the second longest tenured building official in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And during his years of service, he has been a faithful servant to the Prince Edward community. He's had an excellent working relationship with the contractor community and has always gone out of his way to accommodate the public whenever he could. According to the Virginia Building Code Official Association, again, he is one of the longest serving building officials in the history of the state of Virginia and has served as a mentor to many across the state. Mr. Chairman, if you would join me down here, Coy. All right, Coy, come up. We're going to get your picture, get the board behind us.
On the stand.
Come down. Coy W. Leatherwood, building official, County of Prince Edward, Virginia, April 1, 1985, December 31, 2021. Boy, thank you for your service to this community and credit to the county.
Congratulations and best in your retirement, too.
And Coy, thank you for being so easy to work with.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, we're going to let you pull your mask off for once in the courthouse here. David, you know, get centered up there, right, right.
You'll be able to see everybody behind you there. I can't see the ladies. Can't step this way, just, yeah. And the dust not. Yeah. There we go.
One step.
Okay.
Roy, would you like to say a few words?
Well, I just, I regret, kind of regret retiring. I've been here so long. But, I've got a lot to do. I've got a little farm that I'm running, and I've got a lot of work to do on that, so maybe I can catch it up for a while.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Coy. Thank
Thanks
you.
for all your work.
So,
Our own recognition.
Yes, sir.
All right, we appreciate Coy and his time spent here and all of his years. Just thanks. At this time, we're moving to public participation. I think we have two people, Jesse Yates and Cindy Gable. Jesse, if you're here, come on to the pulpit and tell us what you think. I guess that'd be a podium here.
My name's Jesse Yates, and something come to me last month that I'd never run across before. And so far, I haven't found anybody else that's had to happen to. I bought a piece of property to plant trees on, and I had to get a perk test for it. I'm just wondering if y'all are aware of this, or why did I have to do it? No one else has done it that I know of. The perk people said they have to sign off on these. They had never done one. My surveyors had never done one. And I'm just curious why I was the only one being picked on. And do y'all have an answer for me? I would love to know it.
I'll be the first to start that conversation and say that Jesse actually called me, and I wasn't aware of this either. And I called Doug, and he checked into it, and the way our county ordinance reads, I'm gonna turn it over to him and let him tell you. But it's an odd thing, and Bobby and I had talked about it. Jesse's actually in Bobby's district, and Bobby called me, and we talked about it, and we didn't understand exactly why this was the way it was, but we plan to rectify it. It's actually on our board packet tonight, but I'll let Doug take over from here.
Mr. Yates, and I know you and I have not had a chance to talk, but I guess Chairman Emmert has stated that he and I had talked about the issue. Our code clearly requires health department approval for the subdivision of land. Subdivision of land is separating off any lot. What our code does not allow is an exemption, in this case for a forestal use or an ag use that is never intended to be a building lot. Community I came from before, we had such an exemption in talking to the chairman. We've got that plugged into tonight's agenda for consideration to refer back to the Planning Commission to ask them to insert that amendment, both for either ag or forestal land uses. So I'm sorry that you had to go through that process. I understand Mr. Love was doing his job by making that requirement, but there is a way that we can fix that for future applicants. I realize that the timing did not work for you for us to be able to fix the ordinance because we have to have public hearings at both Planning Commission and board level. So we're going to get rectified. We appreciate you bringing it to our attention. And so hopefully the next time you want to do it, you won't have to, if that makes sense.
Me or no one else. That's what I'm saying. It's not just for me.
Well, others, I think, have been required to do it. I don't know,
No one
historically
in
how
this
long.
county has done it that we can find.
Yeah. Well, that's what the ordinance states, is you have to have health department approval.
I think there was a clause that it could be foregone. I'm pretty sure. The way I read it, I'm in front of it right now.
Right. Robbie, if you want to come to the,
Yeah, he'll come up.
what pages?
I think it
How
says
old
it's
is
up
that
to the
ordinance?
Administrator that could be
Is
waived.
it old? I mean, okay.
To answer your question, Ms. Jones, in our ordinance, it says that we shall get an approval from the health department on a subdivision. So there is a section of county ordinance that says that on a single tract of land, the subdivision administrator may relax certain things. But if you read state code and used to reading code, the word shall trumps the word may. So that's why I did not exempt this from our ordinance, because of the word shall be approved by the health department.
That's fair. And I agree with having been a plan director myself for 12 years in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Robbie was doing his job. Again, I understand what Mr. Yates is doing. I understand how we can fix that and rectify it and moving forward. But just because of the timing, I couldn't fix it fast enough to take care of your current situation. I apologize for that.
Yeah, I would say to you, Jesse, I appreciate you bringing it to my attention, Bob, and so that we could bring it to the board, because it's an odd deal, whether it's on there or not. It's odd the way it is. And I think that just a few months ago, we talked about, I think the county attorney, we talked about that earlier, about not this, but about shall and will and can, and the state of Virginia shall trumps about everything. So that's what caused it this time. And I do know we can't find any record of where it had happened before, but thank you for bringing it to our attention. And if you stay here for a while, I think you'll see it rectified. And if you go home, then I'll see to it that you know what happens.
I
Either way.
appreciate it. And when you rectify it, just put it in a short sentence where people can understand it, that you don't have to back up to this paragraph or that paragraph.
I understand.
And we'll all be on the same page.
That's right. Go ahead, Rob.
Absolutely.
And I do want to add, I've been here since May of 2020. This is the first large lot subdivision tract of land. His subdivision, he was taking 101 acres out of 191 or 92. So this is the first plat of its kind that I had actually had to review. So he is right, this was the first large lot tract that we've had split where someone sought to have an ag exemption.
If there are any other questions or anything from the board, as far as that's concerned, it'll be in our packet, so we're gonna discuss it later, but if there's anything that you want to know or do now, it's still open and public participation. If not, Miss Cindy Gable.
Thank you. My name is Cindy Gable. I'm a resident of Prince Edward County. And I was employed at the Department of Social Services here in Prince Edward County in 1976. I worked for 39 years there in different capacities, but retired as social work supervisor in 2015. I was offered a part-time job immediately upon my retirement, an hourly part-time position at the agency. So I returned a month after I retired. So in all, I've worked there now. It's over 45 years. My reason for being here tonight is to discuss my ineligibility for the one-time hazardous duty bonus for both part-time and full-time employees. I was denied that bonus, and it was explained to me that part-time employees had to work a minimum of 48 hours per month for just a period from July through October of this year. The work that I do is seasonal in that I handle the energy assistance program for the county. And so my work is based on the program. The heating program runs October 15th through March 15th. And then the cooling program begins on June 15th and ends August 15th. So I work all the months in the year except May and September because there's no program at that time. So using the formula of hours worked in the months of July through October for this bonus, that included the month of September, which I didn't work. So my average monthly hours was just 41.5. However, if you look at January through the October deadline that you were looking at, I work an average of 65 hours per month, or I worked an average of 65 hours each month. That comes from not just what I'm saying, but from the Office Administrator in Prince Edward Social Services. So I feel like the board probably wasn't aware that there maybe are seasonal county employees. And I don't think that such employees were considered in developing the policy for this one-time bonus. So I'm here tonight to make the board aware of what I think was an unintentional discrepancy in that one-time hazardous pay through a bonus, and to request your reconsideration of my eligibility. I feel like I've been a dedicated employee of the county, as I said, for over 45 years. And really, by being denied this bonus, I felt very devalued and unappreciated. I understand the parameter, I mean, I know what your calculations were, but again, I just don't feel like my situation was taken into consideration. So I just wanted to voice my feelings about that tonight and request that you review that policy.
Doug, is that something we can adjust? I mean, it's kind of like COI, I mean, as far as 45 years and so forth.
So, and first of all, Ms. Gable had contacted me, and I talked to the DSS director, and it's my understanding the DSS board actually discussed the issue. Yes, it's unfortunate, Ms. Gable's, the way her timing worked out, because she is seasonal. She is not the only employee. We had some other employees whose average would have been in the 30-hour range that also did not get the bonus. One of the difficulties is you'd have to go back to you could have a public hearing next month, and you could reconsider if the board wanted to reconsider Ms. Gable and any of the other employees that were not included. I'd say it's hard when you set a limit and a definition and trying to come up with it. I think, and Sarah, you were intimately involved. We were trying to be fair, and we have a lot of part-time folks, whether in the sheriff's office and the solid waste department, that work certain schedules. So we were trying to be equitable, but at the same time, not including the ones that didn't work as much. It's inevitably, when you do that, some people are going to be left out, and some people will make the cut. But, staff will do what the board directs, but I don't know if Supervisor Cooper Jones has anything else to say. I know, like I said, I know the DSS board discussed the issue last month.
When we discussed the issue, when we discussed the issue at Social Services, the full Social Service Board came to agreement that it was an ordinance, that it did have a public hearing, that it was approved, and that was our stance, that we were not going to change it. And that full board voted 100%.
If the board wants us to go back and reevaluate this for other positions, we can certainly provide that information to you. I don't have the complete list of who missed out, but Ms. Gable, you were definitely in that anomaly, in that if you looked at the full year, you worked the hours
Yes.
necessary to meet the criteria. If you looked at in the defined window of July 1 to the end of October, because you didn't work in the month of September.
Right.
That's what caused you to miss the
Yes.
cut.
And they said even if you had included the month of November, my hours in November, I would have qualified. I just feel, I know there are part-time employees who work fewer than 45 hours a month. But my thing is, I'm seasonal. So there are many months when I work, like, for instance, in last January, I worked 115. February, I worked 131. So, I'm there all the time, I feel like, except for those 2 months. And, and the board, what the director relayed to me was that there are people who think I deserve that bonus, but there wasn't policy to back it up. And so that's why I'm questioning the policy. I just feel like a seasonal worker was not considered in this computation. And it just bothered me that the employee that I'm training and supervising has only been there 6 months and got a $3,000 bonus. I supervise him, I got nothing. So it was hurtful to me, so I wanted to speak my piece.
Anything else from the board?
We revisited it. Could we, is it, as far as where those bonuses were given out at the Department of Social Services, that was their board.
That's correct.
Yeah, so.
But we in essence gave them the Board of Supervisors, which included in the language the DSS employees, DSS department. set the parameters of July 1 through October. So what we would have to do,
Which was the portion of the fiscal year, that was based on the fiscal year.
yeah, we didn't go back into last fiscal year. Let's say the board wanted to go, let's recalculate July through the end of November and recalculate that. You know, we could see, I don't know how many other employees that may impact, but we would, if you want to, we'd have to have a public hearing next month on that in order to do it. Because you'll adopt it as an ordinance, by state law, it's an ordinance, it's in the codified. Am I missing anything,
It
Sarah?
would require an amendment to that ordinance.
Yeah.
Because the ordinance stipulated the qualifications and eligibility, so we'd have to amend the ordinance and then advertise it for public hearing.
That's what I told Cindy. I said, I completely appreciate the situation, but it's not a regulation, it's an ordinance. So it's a law adopted by the boards. I don't, under that, I don't have personal flexibility to be able to adjust that.
I guess we looked at the county employees pretty closely as far as who would fall in, who would not fall in, but we didn't really overview the social services employees.
Because they have a board of their own when we,
Right,
right,
right.
we did
Right.
look at them the night that we did that, but because they have a board of their own, we allowed them to make that
Right.
decision, which is,
Right.
Yeah.
and what you said just a minute ago is the reason why it catches some people, because it's part of the fiscal year, it's not cumulative hours or whatever else. That, we did look at
That is
that
true.
night too, as to where, had to have a cutoff somewhere. It's,
And we-
I would say to you, I feel for you, I understand where you're coming from, but you're not the only one. There were several other people that did the same thing too. Maybe not in DSS, but.
And not seasonal.
And
because-
not
and
seasonal, correct.
Right.
You say you work 45 hours per month, average?
Average.
Yeah, I actually, well, looking back 10 months, from January through October, I worked an average of 65 hours a month. Because there are some months when the heating program is going on, of course, I'm there over 100 hours,
So they average out about 2 days per week.
at least, yes.
Like I say, the problem is because it being a fiscal year, it catches that 1 month where she doesn't have to be present. That's
Right.
what,
That's it.
and that was, that money came from somewhat of a set aside too, which kind of puts us in a different bracket. I mean, it's up to the board as to what you all would decide, but I don't think it's gonna change.
And because we paid it in the month of November, we stopped at the end of October because we don't have all the timesheets and stuff to be able to compute the November average. So it was, we started with the first of the fiscal year and went through the
Yeah, there's
last
two-
full month.
There's two circumstances there that so happens to catch you and some other people also, but it's.
Okay.
I'll say to the board, are there any more questions, anything else that you would like to do? As Patty's already said, the DSS board has made their decision, so we would have to override. We'd have to override their decision, and we would have to have a public hearing, and we would have to do an amendment, so.
Oh, well, it's something we can, look into, and it's not, we gotta have the public hearing next month. We
Can we pay this after this, was that part of?
You could do that at any point in time if y'all made that decision. That's, the only thing we were really tied to was the compensation board required us to pay it by the end of November for the sworn officer positions in the sheriff's office. So the rest of the employees, we had the flexibility from a timing standpoint. If you want, we can pull all that information
Let us
together
look
and
at-
send it out to
Would
the
you like to
board.
table this until we can get some more information, I guess is what.
Well, I think Ms. Stinson did a pretty thorough job of, other than DSS.
Correct. I thought you waved me to, yeah. We will bring this back up before the board, ma'am,
All right, thank you very
and
much.
see what, any other, those are the only two people that have signed up. Was there anyone else who, from the floor, would like to speak? If not, this time, I'm going to close the public participation. Board Supervisors comments, Ms. Pride.
I would like to say good evening to everybody. Want to wish everybody
Merry Christmas, safe holiday, be blessed. Thank you.
I would like to say kind of the same thing, except for I'd like to say thanks for everyone that is here. Thank you for the participation. Thank you all for, Jesse, I appreciate you coming and giving us some information that we needed. I'm glad that Ms. Gable came and also pointed us in a direction that we may need to take a look at. This is the only way that you all have a part in this, is if you show up or you contact one of us, and I appreciate the fact that you've done so. I also would like to say that wish each and every one of you a very Merry Christmas and Happy Holiday.
I'd like to say welcome, everyone. And it's truly nice to see different faces and people who have genuine interests and concerns in their county. And I too would like to wish you a safe and happy holiday season.
I too would like to welcome everyone and thank you for coming out tonight, and also wish you a Merry Christmas and a prosperous New Year.
And I'd like to wish all of you happy holidays and so forth. I'm a little perturbed at Patty. Patty just was looking right at me when she said it's nice to see different faces.
Thanks, Jill.
Bobby,
Have a good holiday.
Jerry,
Just want to follow everything been said. Happy holidays. Be safe.
Lou,
Glad to see everyone. Hope everyone has a real nice Christmas, New Year's. Thank you for coming.
all right, on to the consent agenda, starting on page 15. Are there any? It's pretty
If no one
extensive.
has a comment on it, I move approval.
Second.
There's been a motion made and properly second for the approval of the consent agenda. Ms. Pride?
Yes.
Myself is a yes. Patty?
Yes.
Beverly?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Yeah.
Jared, look, Bobby? Jim? I got Jim, Bobby. All right, give me two, Jerry.
Yes.
And Lou.
Yes.
All right, consent agenda is taken care of. All right, budget amendments, page 79.
Mr. Chairman, the county received a proposal, review fee for the submission of an unsolicited proposal by Prince Edward County Infrastructure LLC for the anticipated cost of processing, reviewing, and evaluating the proposal. You have a credit there of $50,000 proposed and a debit of $30,000 for legal services, $10,000 for professional services for engineering, $9,000 for finance, and $1,000 for general expenses.
I move that we approve the appropriation as presented.
Second.
It has been properly made and seconded. Ms. Pride?
Yes.
Myself is a yes. Patty?
Yes.
Beverly?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Bobby?
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
And Lou.
Yes.
So moved.
Next item, Mr. Chairman, is a request from Prince Edward County Public School Board for some additional grants. We've received a request for an appropriation amount of $127,536.62 to the school operating budget. These funds are a combination of state and federal reimbursement grants, and no county matches required. The total amount proposed is $127,536.62.
We approve the appropriations.
Second.
Motion made and properly seconded. Ms. Pride?
Yes.
Myself is a yes. Patty?
Yes.
Beverly?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Bobby?
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
And Lou.
Yes.
So moved.
Next item, Mr. Chairman, obviously with our recognition earlier this evening of Mr. Leatherwood, at this time, I'm requesting that Philip A. Moore be appointed building official effective January 1, 2022. And Philip, as you know, we are very fortunate to have him on board and coming over from the town of Farmville. And we've had the great opportunity the last couple months to have some overlap with the two of them, to be able for Philip to get to know the county operations systems and the people and staff, and I think it's worked well.
So where is he?
Right there.
Nice to meet you, sir.
Is one of the requirements that he served for 35 years?
That's correct. That was
He
one of-
actually 36. He has to beat the
beat
previous
him.
person.
36, okay.
That's right.
I'm gonna move that the Board of Supervisors appoint Philip A. Moore to the position of county building official effective January 1, 2022.
Second.
It has been properly made and seconded, Ms. Pride.
Yes.
Myself as a yes, Patty,
Yes.
Beverly.
Yes.
Jim, Bobby, Jerry.
Yes.
And Lou.
Yes.
Welcome aboard.
Mr. Chairman, be appropriate, Philip, anything you'd like to,
I was gonna say,
I appreciate the appointment, and I'm gonna do everything I can to work hard for the county and serve the citizens the best I can, and try to build on what Corey's already done, so to live up to his expectations.
You have some big shoes to fill.
I appreciate it very much.
Congratulations.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Scott, is Scott here with us this evening? Is he on? Scott Frederick? Is he online? Nope. All right.
just say if y'all have any concerns, let me know, and I will forward them on to Scott. I will say, you know, we've been working hard trying to address some litter concerns on 460 East. Appreciate, I think he's trying to get his contractor in to pick up some of that. I know jail's been picking up some of the secondary roads as well. But if y'all have any concerns, this time of year, I know block ditches and getting ready for ice and snow is on everybody's mind, so please forward them along.
I got it.
15 north and south.
Trash?
Pick up or
Pick
bad?
up, pick up.
Needs to be.
Needs to be picked up, yeah.
You know, Doug, these transport trucks with the roll-offs, they roll the tarp back, they need to strap them on the sides. Because the wind gets under them, every time you follow one, it just.
Stop
blows up
blowing.
under. I think that's where a lot of it's coming from.
And Sheriff couldn't be here. It's Sheriff's birthday tonight, and I told him he had a night off, so I will.
Happy birthday.
He's 29. I will also talk to the sheriff for you about that as well.
Just so the public knows, we're supposed to start at 7:30. We're gonna take just a split second, to finish this up. Is there anything else? I did get a phone call, from a citizen about the entrance again to the Dollar General Prospect. I see that they had done something, but you still cannot see very far down there. I don't know what, Robbie, you might be able to tell us what our initial plan was, whether we had to have 150 feet of, I guess, eye space, for lack of a better word.
The actual footage, I can't quote you tonight, but I can tell you I'm very familiar with that project because that was my project. That project went through access management review with VDOT, and it does have access management. Now, I will tell you practically, common sense, that ditch line and the grass, as high as it gets, does impact site distance. I've been out there, we do stormwater inspections pretty regular. And so regular maintenance of that right away, VDOT does help that. And the site supervisor, they know that to cut that grass on the Dollar General property. But that does meet the minimum requirements of VDOT for access management and site distance.
Okay. Thank you. Just let him know
Will
that
do.
there was still some concern. All right, at this time, we're gonna open the public hearing. I'm gonna turn this over to Doug, page 89 for you all. Go ahead, Robin. I guess that's what I should. Go for it.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, our first public hearing tonight is a 2232 review of CEP Solar LLC. This is a utility-scale solar energy facility. We received this application. It is on parcels 79-5-3 and 92-A-31, consisting of 304.6 acres. Public hearing was properly advertised in the December 1st and December 8th editions of the Farmville Herald. The Planning Commission met at the November meeting pursuant to Virginia Code Section 15.2-32 and reviewed this application and found it to be substantially in accord with the comprehensive plan and subsequently held the public hearing after for the special use permit. No one spoke in opposition of this application, and since the Planning Commission meeting and up until right now, I've had no comments for or against this application from the public. The existing conditions, this is, right now, it's a timbered property. It has timber land and growth of timber on it. It's zoned A1 agricultural and is adjacent to the Rice Creek Road. You have references to our comprehensive plan here and the application itself, the notice of public hearing, and the site plan. I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have on this application. Again, this is the first step tonight for this application. The next hearing would be the special use permit.
All right, at this time, it's open up to the public if there's any for or against, either here or online, either one. Is there anyone online, Cheryl? There was one person. You know if it was on this particular project? Okay. While we're giving them a moment, is there anything from the board or anything from the public? I guess hearing none, I'm gonna close that. All right, Doug. Do we need to go to B?
So we've got some recommended motions on page 90 there for the 2232 review.
Probably no one spoke in opposition to this at the,
I was not in attendance of that meeting,
Okay.
sorry to say.
sorry?
I don't believe anybody spoke in opposition at the planning commission meeting, did they, Rob?
No, we had actually somebody speak in favor of too.
I'm gonna move that the CEP Solar LLC proposed 25 megawatt utility scale solar energy facility as described by the special use permit application is substantially in accord with the Prince Edward County Comprehensive Plan and promotes the goals, objectives, and strategies noted in the plan.
I'll second.
All right, there has been a motion made and seconded. Ms. Pride?
Yes.
Myself is a yes. Patty?
Yes.
Beverly?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Bobby?
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
And Luke?
Yes.
All right, unanimous there. So moved. I think our next one's on page 99. This is actually, go ahead, Robbie.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, this is a special use permit. It's been filed by CEP Solar LLC. This is a 25 megawatt utility solar scale energy facility with a total acreage of 304.6 acres on the eastern side of State Route 647 Rice Creek Road. The facility will utilize approximately 70% of the property for the location of solar panels. The project site is crossed by an existing south side electric distribution line, and that will be the customer of the energy produced from this facility. This public hearing was properly advertised on December 1st and December 8th, Farmville Herald. Purpose of this special use permit is to allow the location of a utility-scale solar generation facility. Planning Commission held its advisory hearing on November 16th. No one spoke in opposition, and it was unanimously recommended to be approved. You do have at your place setting a updated set of conditions. They recommended conditions that staff had put together. Since that time frame, we had had a review by legal counsel, and there have been some edits to that. And it's recommended that you, if you consider this application, that you would include the amended application
Robbie, real quick,
conditions.
I'm not sure we have the
Don't
amended
have that.
No, I don't have it.
set of conditions. I might get you to go run a set while
I've got
we're
a
doing
copy, if you, okay?
while you're doing the hearing.
Yes, I'll get you a set of, I'll get a set of copies to everybody while you're having your hearing. I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have of me. We've had no comments for or against this application since it was advertised for your board hearing tonight.
I just want to interject too. We have a new member of our team helping us with the solar project. You may recognize her, Vivian Giles, Sands Anderson. Vivian specializes in solar projects and has been helping us in review of the application, but in particular, helping us with a siting agreement. And I might let, probably a good point in time, Vivian, if you want to get up and just talk about the siting agreements and how that interplays with the SUP.
Sure.
So the applicant is asking for your approval of the conditions tonight, and so one exercise that we went through to try to get this to the point where it could be appropriate for your approval tonight, based on the way I recommend these projects go forward anyway. Of course, you're free to vote projects however you choose, but my recommendation in the localities that I work with around the state is that on projects of this size, so any project can have a siting agreement, but on projects this size, there is a statutory requirement that the applicants try to negotiate a siting agreement. There's no statutory requirement that you grant one or that you enter into such an agreement, but there is a statutory requirement that that negotiation exercise take place. That being said, the other thing that I always recommend is that your conditions be integrally linked and tied to such a siting agreement, because if you don't do that, then you have a siting agreement, which is a contract, and it can be enforced only as contracts can in a court of law, and nobody likes to go to court. No, nobody really wants to. We make a living doing it, but nobody really wants to. The other element of the projects then is your conditional use permit, or special use permit. Everybody calls them something different. And that has a little more teeth to it. It has different enforcement options. And because, for example, if an applicant violates a condition at a later date, then the permit can be pulled and the project stopped. So it's nice to have that little bit of extra enforcement option. So and the reason I'm telling you all of this is because that's the nature of one of the edits to the conditions that Mr. Stanley is referring to, and I'm also, do they have a copy of the proposed siting agreement? Okay, so the draft siting agreement. So one of the conditions that we added was a reference to specifically requiring as a condition that the siting agreement be adhered to. Now, with respect to the siting agreement, that itself requires a public hearing, so you can't approve that tonight. I believe Mr. Stanley's planning to bring that back to you in January. But in order to help this project move along, because of the time frame that it's on, there's some sensitive timing here. What we can do, and we crafted this solution today actually, was to bring to you a fully executed siting agreement from the applicant, recommending that that be attached to your conditions, and you will see in condition 2, when
2B.
there's B, yes, in 2B, you will see a specific reference to that siting agreement to be attached as an exhibit to the conditions, and requiring that the applicant comply with that siting agreement. And again, following a public hearing, you can approve that in January. I did ask, as I said, that siting agreement be proffered to you fully executed, so that it becomes a part of the record and not retractable at a later date. So that would be my recommendation to you. If you are inclined to approve your conditions tonight, would be to fully incorporate that siting agreement. And then again, in January, when you can have a public hearing, or as soon as you want to, you can do it whenever you're able to meet the advertising requirements. But assuming that you do so at your regular January meeting, you could improve that, and then it would be incorporated as a part of this project.
I think a couple elements, Vivian, that we can highlight for the board. The siting agreement really ties in, this is the revenue share component, the fact that $1,400 per year per megawatt is what's in the current statutory code and goes up, I think, on 5-year intervals with the state, but it also ties it in, if the General Assembly were to ever roll that back and adjust that, the siting agreement guarantees the county will receive that much in revenue per year. In addition, the applicant has proffered a $200,000 contribution to the county to help with capital improvements up front. So that's all included as part of the siting agreement, so we would be protected to make sure that happens. The conditions really going to govern the operation and development of the site. The siting agreement ties some of those in, but also locks in the financial commitments from the developer.
That's correct, and that was enacted just a couple of years ago, because prior to that, there was no statutory authority to engage in those conversations and to receive those types of contributions. So that's, for these larger projects, that's the need, really, to have a siding agreement and to incorporate that.
And I say that because Supervisor Jones, every time we have one of these, asks me, what's in it for the county financially, right, Bob? So we're nailing it down.
Job, isn't it, Bobby?
Nailing it down. So procedurally, we'll have the public hearing in a few minutes on the special use permit. The board can make a decision whether it wants to approve or not. Again, I think the applicant would like us to take action on the SUP tonight. The siting agreement, because of the state code requirement, we've been negotiating back and forth pretty much for the last two plus weeks on trying to nail down the language. But we basically have a general framework that we think works. And the board would, again, have a public hearing. The public would have an opportunity to comment on that agreement at our meeting in January.
And I will say, if after receiving public comment, edits or amendments that you wanted amendments to that agreement, because this is tied to your special use permit, the agreement I'm talking about, the siding agreement, you can always, well, regardless of whether you have a siding agreement attached or not, you can always amend. You have to go back through the whole process again. But I don't want you to feel like, or the public, importantly, the public to feel like any of this is not amendable or changeable should the need arise. We don't think so. It's been hashed over pretty intricately, but that is, again, if for no other reason, I just want the public to understand that that these things can be evaluated.
Any questions from the seat? I want to hold up until you get a copy of this.
I know Trey's over there making copies. He should be back. If y'all want to go ahead and start the hearing, hopefully, certainly before we're done with the hearing, he'll be back.
At this time, I'm going to open the public hearing on this. Is there anything from the board or from the public, either one? Anyone online to speak to this, 2 or 4 against? Yes, sir.
Yes. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Thank you very much. My name is Tyson Nutt. I'm actually with CEP Solar, the applicant. And if it's the pleasure of the board, I'd like to go ahead and share with you all some of the materials we prepared. Okay. And I know that Robert had, if we've got the presentation available, it'd be great to be able to pull that up. And I can step you through some of the slides. And while we're doing that, thank you also, Vivian, for that explanation. Doug and the county folks for working with us on this. We understand in many ways that solar is a new development opportunity coming before many different counties across the Commonwealth. And so appreciate you all working with us really to work out what is a good approach, because we're, as a company, and I think that I'll speak to this when the presentation is ready, we're really motivated by not only the environmental benefits of these projects, but also the economic benefits of the projects. And I think that's part of what you probably heard in the explanation earlier, is how there are certain limitations, frankly, between the engagement with the developers and the localities on projects of this type until that ability is expressly granted by the state. And so that, to me, is so much of what the siting agreement legislation did. It really was, an effort by the state to enable these types of conversations so that, the economic benefits, frankly, of these projects can be fully recognized. In the context of, I think I shared it as a PDF too, just in case you haven't issued on the PowerPoint. What's important to me on that particular point is the fact that if the project were taxed under the traditional M&T rate in Caroline County, you would not only see like a lower revenue benefit from that, but you also have your considerations for the state's role in terms of the composite index, the SEC's role in terms of the depreciation rates on projects, all those other factors that frankly lead to just a lower amount of revenue for the community. And so that's why I think that what I think generally may seem as though like a complicated topic I think it has more to do with the fact that it's a new topic. It's something that we're working with the counties, collectively to really try and perfect. And in this case, I think that Prince Edward County has been wonderful to work with, and the agreement just really reflects the statute as it was intended.
Or just off the card,
We're having a little difficulty there, but we'll be with you in a minute.
Okay.
It's going to be a copy of the signed agreement as well that you're getting. Nope.
Thank you.
Bear with us, Mr. Chairman, we're in the process of
Go ahead.
setting up the computer. I get in a second.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, and when you're at a point, I do have one suggested addition to the siding agreement. So when you're at a point, I did speak with the applicant's counsel right before the meeting, and we talked about one small addition. Do you want me
Go ahead.
to
Yes,
share
ma'am.
that at the, right, no, okay. Sorry, I'm on the wrong document. Of course I am. So on page 2, 3 of the siding, the draft siding agreement, it would be item 2C. That paragraph starts annual supplement payments. At the bottom of that, just to add, after that second paragraph that starts, for example, add a third paragraph saying, that would read, notwithstanding any of the foregoing, comma, in the event the county solar revenue share ordinance is repealed and personal property taxes are imposed on the project, comma, then the annual supplement payment will be 0. And what that is about is that we have gone into some detail here talking about what was mentioned to you earlier, that if the state were to change the legislation such that the potential, that the revenue share amount to be collected on the project would somehow go down, this contractual provision keeps it level so that if the state does something weird, you wouldn't suffer that consequence. However, if you chose to no longer have a revenue share but go back to the personal property tax, which is your other option, the machinery and tools, that's your other option. And generally, I think Mr. Ott was just referring to the fact that typically, especially in smaller localities like the size of Prince Edward County, typically when you run the numbers, most folks find that the revenue share is more lucrative. And that, I'm sure you did that, and that's the reason you adopted it. But if you ever chose to reverse that, then this supplement would be 0 because there would be no longer a need for that exercise and that calculation. That's all that's about. But
All right. Thank you, ma'am. Any questions from the board on that?
Doug, let me go ahead and speak.
Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman and Board of Supervisors. I'm here speaking on behalf of the Land Trust, PRJ Land Trust, which owns the property. It's a family land trust. I'm a minority owner with my brother and sister in the property as well. First and foremost, I want to thank you for your thoughtful time and consideration of the special use permit request. This is my grandmother's farm. Point blank, plain and simple. It's on Rice Creek Road, which has about 40 to 60 vehicles per day, mostly hunters, to go through there. So it's probably one of the least traveled roads in Prince Edward County. So we think from a siting perspective, it's probably a good location. Give you a little bit of history behind the farm. Farm used to be an agricultural use, tobacco, hay, and cattle. I grew up getting hay up over there, and my grandmother had a half-acre garden until she had a stroke, and then she went back to a quarter-acre garden. But if you went to visit her and you left with less than a bag full of groceries, she obviously didn't like you. So I'm sure my Aunt Joanne can tell us many other stories about growing up there as well. But as most of you know, there are really not many options for small farms these days, okay? Once it was taken out of active farming, trees were planted because of those limited options due to labor or other issues similar to what other small farms are dealing with. You know, once the family kind of grows up, moves away, people pass away, unfortunately, you don't have much of a farming operation. Since Dad died in 2011, we've looked at several different ways we could use this property for the good of the community and make some money on it versus lose money on it each year. So we're getting a little bit of hunt club revenue, but it doesn't even pay our taxes at this point in time on the particular piece of property. We obviously want to be a good neighbor and good community member, which finally brings us here tonight. After several years of looking at all these different options, we were able to come up with a solution. In a lot of ways, it's almost a relief, at least for me, because I've been the one having to manage a lot of this stuff. And it's nice to have an option that's good for the environment. You know, alternative energy is becoming a big deal. We see a lot of economic development prospects showing up looking for an alternative energy mix within their power profile, in particular data centers and big, heavy electrical users, which we have targeted for the HIP Park as well. And it's nice to have project partners like Tyson Nutt with CEP Solar. So they're leaders in the industry. So we work with over 25 different solar developers throughout the country. I had my team give me the top 5 in Virginia. I vetted those top 5, and CEP Solar very quickly rose to the top as being leaders in the industry. It's also nice to have the ability for the county to make a little bit more money off this other than $2,100 a year. Right now, we get $1,872 a year in hunt club lease rate, which is less than taxes. And it's also nice to have this option help with Virginia's new Clean Economy Act, which was put in place last year by the legislature, which is intended to reduce carbon emissions. So obviously, as I mentioned about the HIT Park, what's ironic, or not ironic, but what's good about this particular project is we're only a couple miles located from the 230 kV electrical transmission line, which runs directly to and through the HIT Park. So it is in close proximity to that. So if a data center shows up looking for an alternative energy profile, you've got this asset, as well as any other solar farms y'all approve in and around the county, that could essentially help them offset that energy demand, which they have their consideration of. So anyway, with all that being said, as such, you know, on behalf of the family and PRJ Land Trust, we really want to thank you for your thoughtful consideration and respectfully request that you approve a special use permit tonight with contingency of the siting agreement being approved. I do have some year-end financial obligations that we're trying to take care of. If this had been a month ago, we could afford to have it delayed another month, but we really can't because I've got to get some stuff taken care of by December 31st this year for tax purposes. And I respectfully request y'all take that in consideration as you look whether to move forward or not with it at this point in time. So thanks much for your time and consideration, and happy holidays as always.
Sure, are they purchasing or leasing the land from your family?
They're leasing.
Leasing, okay, that's kind of the norm. The one thing, having listened to several other proposals about solar power plants in our county, the decommissioning issue always comes up, and we had a little rough time with one group. But anyhow, I see y'all got a plan in there that estimates the plan would be $1.8 million to decommission. Is that in today's dollars, I assume, not 20, because the plant, they usually last 20, 25 years?
Yeah, sure. Y'all have any other questions for me? Oh, I'll be here for any other questions y'all have, but I'll let Mr. Rod speak.
Yes, that's a good question. And again, what I could do is I can speak to that, any other questions, and also step through the presentation and share some information that might be helpful as well. But on the decommissioning specifically, that's an amount that's generated through the studies done through the Timmons Group, the engineering firm, on what would be the decommissioning cost of the project, and then it's updated over the life of the project. So a reassessment on a 5-year basis to make sure that those costs are kept up to date and that the funds through a bond or other form of security are in place with the county so that there's not a risk of those funds not being available to actually conduct the work of decommissioning the project. They are really projected on a 40-year lifespan. So these are the kind of the reasons why we want to be planning for those things. At this point in time.
Okay, well, great, because one of them we heard was really not much of a plan made, and I was just worried, and they were leasing the land also.
Right.
And I was worried that one day down the road, the owners might be left with a big mess to clean up.
Right, yep, no, and I think specific to that reason is why, you know, the security of having the bond in place is
Right.
an intentional mechanism to protect against that.
They weren't too willing to do a bond. So
Okay.
that's another issue, but anyhow,
Okay.
thanks for the
Okay.
answer.
Yeah.
Just briefly to that point, and that's another reason that I like to tie the two documents together, the siting agreement and the conditions, because as you near the end of the project, quite frankly, the applicants wouldn't care if they have a conditional use permit or not, or special use permit, because when they're ready to go, they're done. So it's nice to have the two integrally linked, so that then you have at least contractual obligations that would require the decommissioning and the bonding, but the decommissioning is the payment for the decommissioning. So with those tied together, that's another reason. On the flip side, initially I sort of suggested to you that I like having the conditions because that gives you a little more enforcement muscle. But at the end of the project, the contract does. So again, just to reiterate, it's nice having those two together. That's another reason why.
Okay, I'll give it an attempt here to kind of see if I can make this work and step through, and then certainly be available to answer any questions as well. Again, just for everyone's benefit, my name is Tyson and representing the applicant, CEP Solar, and prepared the presentation here that can step through a little bit background information. Yes, sir.
Give you one quick thing. We have a 3-minute presentation thing, so I just want to give you that. Didn't start until just now. So
Oh, all right,
you're good to go.
great. Okay,
You're good to
all
go.
right. I'll-
Difficulty, I won't tax you for.
Sounds good. I'll attempt to be efficient here. Okay, so really, it will be a pretty straightforward presentation. 3 minutes, 3 parts. We've got the CEP Solar introduction, who we are as a company, the due diligence process that we undertake as a company in terms of selecting sites that are suitable for development, and then also the project details themselves, so you have a better sense of what it is that's being proposed. I know more details are in the packets in front of you, but this presentation is geared towards some of the high-level items. CEP Solar, who are we? Commonwealth Energy Partners, my partner Richard Wright and I, we really formed this company after having spent more than a decade each developing projects similar to this across the country, because we really saw how, for us living in Virginia, the opportunity was now to be able to help bring this industry here and do that in a responsible way. We, with our families, live in Virginia, and we're fully focused on projects here, as well, as opposed to traveling the country and conducting this development work in other states. So for us, it's very important, that we stick to those values as you see on the screen, and create these projects that are benefits not only, for the communities, but for the Commonwealth as a whole. Our diligence process, I realize that some of the information on the screens is pretty small, but I'll provide the voiceover for you. Really how, through the amount of data that's available, both in terms of publicly available information, whether it's through the Department of Environmental Quality, DCR, DCH, others, there's just so much information, and the county's own GIS websites, for us to be able to gather and really begin to screen sites and really determine what are suitable locations and what are not. I think as mentioned, so much of it does also have to do with the transmission system. Where is it located? What's the capacity available on those lines? And so we take those two key factors, combine them together, and that's how we generally attempt to locate projects. But we want to be very sensitive to, the environmental concerns, the cultural concerns, as well as the community concerns. And we'll speak a little bit later about the community meeting that we held back in September. The process generally, we're at the first step of the process. The same presentation that we had shared with the Planning Commission, it describes how in the state of Virginia, you have to complete the county permitting process before you can apply to the DEQ process for projects of this scale. And so for us as the applicant, we work on the zoning piece, and then with that approval, we then are able to further engage the state agencies around the consultation and some of the studies that they are most equipped to address on the projects. Further, there can be a federal level of permitting. That really depends upon the site-specific characteristics or the plan for any disturbances. In this particular case, as you'll see on a later slide, fortunate not to have any T&E species located on site, as well as our site plans are designed to avoid and minimize wetland impacts. So that'll be a more of a streamlined, easy process. So now just to jump into some of the project details. The project is about 6 miles south of where we are today, 4 miles south of Hampton, Sydney, just to the east of Route 15, kind of bordered by Rice Creek on the western side and then the Bush River on the eastern side. And it's kind of generally depicted on the map here. The project consists of 2 primary parcels that can total about 300 acres. And all told, I think as Joe had described, this was a commercial timber site where the timber has aged out. Timber needs to be harvested. And so, as landowners are evaluating what are our next opportunities for property of this type, solar is one of those considerations that can be taken into account for the family. And part of what makes it quite a suitable site as well for the project. Yes, sir. Okay. The project details, again, to cover this quickly, more of this detailed information is in your packets regarding the site plan itself. Of the 304 acres, about 93 of that would remain undeveloped, whether through those areas that are wetlands, floodplains, other sensitive habitat areas, and up to 200 of that being accounted for in the general area of the site plan. The panels themselves, they are fixed atop monopoles that are in the ground, and so you have minimal footprint of actual disturbance there on the site and able to replant native vegetation underneath of the panels for the operation of the life. I'm just being cognizant of your time and trying to step through the slides quickly. This is spoke to before, just again, in terms of what's the ability to have these projects coexist with both the stream, wetland, and other natural resources in the area. The fact that we have historical, cultural aspects, again, through DHR and DCR, that's where that consultation and permit process takes place at the state level. And as mentioned, no T&E species on this particular site. Again, Rice Creek Road goes right through the middle of the project. That really gives us good access to both the east and western portions. Entrances would be approved by VDOT. This is an example of one of the pictures from the site with an existing gate we'd be able to utilize. And then some of the community outreach. Again, we had a community meeting in the September timeframe where we notified adjacent landowners as well about the project, hosted the community meeting at the Hampton-Sydney Volunteer Fire Department there in the Bay, and we're able to field their questions and concerns there. We're very pleased by the participation in that process and the questions there.
Your time is up, sir.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for your time this evening, and that's my best attempt to try and get the good presentation.
It's tough, we understand.
All right. Thank you, sir.
I think that we have, yes, absolutely, yes. Now you have time to answer any questions at all.
Yeah, just one real quick. I noticed on the payment schedule that you got payments starting in 2023. So y'all feel like it'd be a reality, y'all could get this up and going in a year?
We would love to. That's our goal. And I would say that really what is driving the schedule is going to be the interconnection process. And so for these projects, going through the permitting is sort of one key element of it. The second key element is the approval to interconnect the project to the local distribution grid.
Right.
2023 would be our hope if the process can work sort of as it's intended to. But I will tell you, I mean, there are times where we see delays in the study process and the interconnection with utilities. But, we're working closely with Southside Electric and hope to get it done as fast as we can.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board? I think you have a pretty extensive packet on it, of course, you have the updated now and the site plan. At this time, I'm going to close the public hearing on that and leave it up to the board.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to say that commend with Robbie, and I appreciate Vivian's help, and I think it's a very thorough set of conditions that we've been able to put together to try to address concerns not only of the board, but the planning commission that we've had through the process. We also think it's going to be a good template moving forward. We anticipate additional solar projects coming in Prince Edward. We certainly have borrowed and stolen from other jurisdictions during this process, trying to see what works and what doesn't. And again, I think having Vivian review that has only helped us tighten it up a little bit to make sure Prince Edward's protected to the extent possible.
Any other comments or questions from the board? All right, I guess it is, do we want to move forward to this or not? If so, we need a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Been a motion made and seconded. Ms. Pride?
Yes.
Myself?
Just point of clarification, that's the motion to approve the request, the first draft motion in your
Yes,
packet.
That is
With the
correct.
conditions.
With the conditions.
With the
and site.
conditions.
All right.
After we have the public hearing. Is that correct? All right. Ms. Pride?
Yes.
Myself is a yes. Patty?
Yes.
Pat, Beverly?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Bobby?
Yeah.
Jerry?
Yes.
And Lou?
Yes.
So moved.
So again, you'll see the siting agreement on our agenda for public hearing, the January meeting.
January.
So we'll be back one more time. Vivian, anything else that we've missed with that? Are we good?
No, sir, you're good, you just will have your public hearing, and then I do have the executed citing agreement for inclusion in your conditions, and then for your letter of approval. So I'll hold that, get that language added. That was in the motion, correct? That's
Correct.
With the additions.
With the addition to it after the
Right.
public hearing.
Thank you.
All right. Robbie, to you again for an ordinance amendment.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, our next public hearing is the consideration of an ordinance amendment to the Highway Corridor Overlay District. The Highway Corridor Overlay District was created to protect scenic beauty and viewsheds, enhance level of transportation service along the major county access roads, increase property values. This is a district that exists currently, and we have crafted new language and descriptions of development standards for consideration. The newly proposed areas include both Commerce and Dominion Drive, as well as extending this corridor southward along Farmville Road to the new turn lane at Worsham, right where its intersection with Abilene Road. This ordinance amendment was advertised in December 1st and December 8th editions of the Farmville Herald. Planning Commission held their advisory hearing. No one spoke in opposition, and I've received no other correspondence either for or against the proposed amendment. They unanimously recommended approval, and you have the new language in your package of information now. I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have of me concerning the ordinance amendment as proposed.
Are there any questions for Robbie before we open this up to a public? If not, I'm going to open it to the public. Is there anyone online or from the galley, I guess, that would like to speak? If not, I'm going to close it. All right, board, it's up to you all.
Well, I think this falls right into similar areas where we have this in our county, and it's helped some businesses in our county fund their construction and starting their businesses. So I'd like to make a motion that we approve this.
All right, it's been a motion made. Is there a second?
Yeah, second.
It's been a motion made and properly seconded. Ms. Pride?
Yes.
Myself is a yes. Patty?
Yes.
Beverly?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Bobby?
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
And Lou?
Yes.
So moved. All right. Doug, are you D for the pursuant?
I can
Code
handle
amendment.
that one. Hold on a second.
Page 157 for you all that are on the paper.
So as the board is aware, the Prince Edward County Public Schools has received a total of $4,706,166.87 of additional CARES Act ESSER 3 funding. Prior to the expenditure, in accordance with Section 15.2-2507 of the Code of Virginia, the board is required to hold a public hearing to increase the FY22 county and school budgets, accepting the distribution of federal funds and appropriate the funding to the FY22 county and school budgets. Attached in your packet is a copy of the school's application that represents the planned use of such funding in the packet. So again, because this exceeded the 1% total budget increase, we're required to have a public hearing tonight.
Are there any questions from the board before we open this up? If not, it's open to the public. Are there any comments for, against, or anything else from the public? Shirley, is anyone online still no one to speak to this? Hearing none, I'm going to close it. All right. It's up to the board if we want to amend this?
I'm, move that the board, increase the fiscal year 22 county budget and the fiscal year 22 school budget by $4,706,166.87 and appropriate the same funds to enable the expenditures of the federal opera funding.
Is there a second?
Second.
It has been properly made and seconded. Ms. Pride?
Yes.
Myself is a yes. Patty?
Yes.
Beverly?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Bobby?
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
And Lou?
Yes.
I just want to add, Mr. Chairman, and Supervisor Gilliam and I had a conversation about, the use of the funds. I think school system is spread around. They have hired additional staff to help during COVID. They've also been additional technology and things like reading materials and things. But I will note they are spending almost $2 million on contract services to repair and replace windows, roofing, HVAC, doors. So this is stuff not associated with the elementary school that we're getting ready to work on. So it's good that some of that stuff hopefully can fix some preventive maintenance for down the road and, some additional school buses. And I know there's a lot of other schools that are looking at some of the same improvements, but hopefully, this is a once-in-a-lifetime thing, this kind of money coming down from the Fed. So hopefully they put it to good use and we'll be able to defray some of the costs in the coming years.
Anything else? If not, page 179, citizen volunteer appointments.
Mr. Chairman, I'll call the board's attention to the table pack,
Yes, ma'am.
because there was the addition, we had one additional citizen volunteer application, so if you would turn to page 387 of your table pack. We've updated that chart.
All right. So Teresa's an applicant.
Yes, sir. So the first position is the Board of Zoning Appeals. The Board of Supervisors makes a recommendation to the circuit court, and the circuit court actually makes that appointment. And Mr. Eanes had opted not to reapply. Russell Dove has filed an application.
I recommend Russell Dove.
I second that. I think it's been made and second. Ms. Pride?
Yes.
Myself is a yes. Patty?
Yes.
Beverly?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Bobby?
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
And Lou?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, there are two positions on the Prince Edward County Planning Commission. Two members, one of which opted not to reapply, but we did have another citizen who has submitted an application. So you have two names before you for the two vacancies.
I will recommend Brad Fuller and Teresa Sandlin.
Second.
Been properly made and seconded. Ms. Pride?
Yes.
Myself is a yes. Patty?
Yes.
Beverly?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Bobby?
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
And Lou?
Yes.
So moved.
Mr. Chairman, there is one vacancy on the Crossroads Community Services Board. You have an incumbent who has reapplied and an additional citizen who has filed an application.
I'd like to recommend Thomas Woodall. He's been involved in it, and he has a passionate desire to see it straightened out.
And Watkins, Ms. Watkins, no Dr. Crowder, was she an interim or something? She been, what, 2 years?
She took the place of.
She just got
Dr.
appointed.
Mullins Finney.
Okay, she took the place of Dr. Finney, that been about, what, 2 years, a year?
This year.
This is just her first year.
Yeah.
Okay,
She's eligible for reappointment.
Yes.
right, yeah.
I will abstain because I'm related to Ms. Watkins.
I would like to recommend Bonetta Watkins. She's done an excellent job on the board. She's done very well. I would recommend Bonetta.
All right, in that case, we have two recommendations, one abstent. So we need a second for someone, and then we can take a vote.
I second Bernetta White.
There's been a motion made and second for Bernetta. Is there any other comments from the board?
How you gonna handle the vote?
Seriously.
Well, she'll have to abstain.
I'm not voting.
Okay.
So if you have two motions, you can take the first one, you have a second on. If you get enough votes to approve it, then you take that one. If not, you go to the next.
Okay.
If you can get it.
As I said, been one that's been made second, Ms. Pride.
Okay, so who are we voting for now?
Your vote, we only have one that's been made and second,
That's Bernetta.
and that's Bernetta at this point.
Yes, vote.
Myself is a yes, Patty is gonna abstain, Beverly,
Yes.
Jim? All right, Bobby?
No.
All right, Jerry
Yes.
and Lou?
One question before I vote. He was here the night we were discussing about Crossroads, wasn't he? He spoke. I'm gonna say no.
Okay. That's a 4-3, correct?
Yeah.
4-3-1.
4-3-1. All right, then that's a pass for Bernetta.
So did you say Bernetta win?
She did. That's a 4-3-1. All right. Redistricting, page 191.
Mr. Chairman, the maps that are represented in the board pack, I think as the board is aware, the Supreme Court of Virginia and its special masters are now drafting the maps for the redistricting for the Commonwealth of Virginia for congressional House and Senate districts. And just this last week, we became aware that the draft maps were available. So we have provided those in your board pack. And as the board has seen on these maps, the County of Prince Edward is fully contained still in in District 5 for the United States House of Representatives. However, for the Senate of Virginia and for the Virginia House of Delegates, our county has been split between two districts. So as drawn, part of Prince Edward County would be in Senate District 9, and part of Prince Edward County would be in Senate District 10. And then part of Prince Edward County would be in House District 50, and part of it would be in House District 56. So for those of us who have been around long enough and paid attention, this would not be the first time that the County of Prince Edward has been split between House of Delegates or Senate districts in the Virginia General Assembly. However, due to changes in the Code of Virginia, there is now a section of the code that requires that each precinct, each local precinct shall, back to Chairman Emmert's favorite word, shall be wholly contained within a single congressional district, Senate district, House of Delegates district, and election district used for the election of one or more members of the governing body or school board or for the county or city. So with the help of Melody Foster at the Commonwealth Regional Council, we looked at the plan that has been drawn by the Supreme Court. And of particular concern, I'm gonna deal with the specifics, and then I'll let the county administrator talk about it on a broader scale. But of particular concern to the county will be the fact that the Lockett District has been carved out. Let's see, that was in House District, no, let's see. Yes, has been carved out of Prince Edward County and moved into House District 56. And while on the surface that doesn't seem problematic, for the members of the board that have been through the redistricting process, when we start allocating the population amongst the voting districts within Prince Edward County, the 8 voting districts in Prince Edward County have to be plus or minus 5% of what the ideal population would be. And if they aren't, then they won't meet one of the requirements of all of the numerous laws that we have to follow. So as drawn, the current Lockett District, which is what the Supreme Court has used to draft these maps, is in fact has a population greater than the 5% that will be allowed for the 2021 redistricting. So Melody and I looked at the allocation of the population in the census blocks, and I'm going to say that we did research because I don't want it to be presumed that we were drawing maps in advance of the citizen committee working on it and the Board of Supervisors. But we know that there's going to have to be at least one census block moved out of the Lockett District and into the Lee District in order, if in fact the Supreme Court is going to keep this plan as drawn, they will either lock us in to an almost impossible situation to solve in terms of us being able to meet the requirements of the Code of Virginia and balance the population, or we're going to have to ask them to make at least one adjustment to their map so that we can meet the population requirements to fall within the plus or minus 5%. So Melody and I looked at it and we've identified, and this is doable, but it's only doable if the Supreme Court will also agree with, to an amendment of their maps. So, I'm happy to dig further into it, but I think, you get a sense. Otherwise, the Senate district, if it stays, we can resolve the balance of the population because in fact, the Senate district carve-out that goes north contains the Prospect District. It contains Farmville 701, Farmville 101, and Farmville 801. And I believe that 801 is deficit population, 701 is over in population. But again, just looking at the mapping with the staff of the CRC, we know that there's a way to balance those within the confines of what I'm going to call that hard line that the Supreme Court. But the hard line that the Supreme Court has drawn for the House of Delegates district will put us in an almost impossible situation to try and solve locally if they are unwilling to redraw that line. Now, on a larger scale, I think Mr. Stanley is going to explain why we may want to argue other issues with the Supreme Court.
Well, I think there's the old saying, if you have more than one, say, delegate or senator, you have none. When you get split up, you do have more representation from the standpoint of if you have more people to call. The problem is they only have a piece of you. If you look around South Side on some of the maps, particularly if we were going in District 9 there, you really, it slices the county up, and we're the only county getting sliced up. And granted, we're the larger county, one of the larger counties population-wise, certainly than Nottaway and Lunenburg. But I think, my first choice would be keep us whole in both the Senate and the House districts. And I would hope the board feels similarly. If not, then I think we take the approach like Sarah's outlined is if you're going to split us up, we've got a couple tweaks to minimize the impact on the precincts and voting. But I need basically direction from the board on how I want to respond, and y'all certainly can respond individually, but I think if we speak with one voice for the county, you know, you know, Supervisor Jones and Lockett District, it would throw you in a different district, House district. Again, it gives you another voice, but makes it tougher to get somebody to support something solely for Prince Edward when we're split.
Doug, what does this affect other than the delegates?
I really don't know from a funding standpoint, it really doesn't shift a whole lot. You know, for instance, we've got the bill that Delegate Edmonds, he's going to carry it anyway for Prince Edward in regards to sales tax for the schools. So,
Will it affect our state senator and our congressman? Or?
Congress, we're saying, state senator, we'd be split, and it's a little different split. We get thrown in with District 10, which includes Appomattox, Buckingham, Cumberland, Amelia, Powhatan, Flavanna, all the way up to Louisa and Hanover counties. And that basically is, David, I believe your district, and as Sarah mentioned, was it 801, all the Farmville districts get thrown in with the chairman's district.
Farmland Prospect? Yeah.
It looks like your line is drawn on the Buffalo.
It's got half, I think, maybe half of your district, one of your precincts. House is much cleaner. It's Bobby's district is over in a different district with Cumberland, Buckingham, Appomattox, Savannah, Goochland.
If it's on the Buffalo, that splits the town of Farmville too.
If you look at the Senate district, you're in with the 3 town districts in David.
Yeah, your Buffalo Heights precinct.
Yeah, the unfortunate part is, if you look at the maps, we're the one that gets split.
We will get, yeah.
We got split twice
We don't want to
in
be
2 different
split.
ways.
Right.
We don't want to be
Yeah,
split.
if you got split, it'd be nice to be split in the same way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But we can cure the local districts with the way the Senate is drawn. I fear that the way the House district is drawn, there will be no cure for us.
We're going to have to move a block, or census tract block from your district to Jerry's district to fix it.
And then we would, yeah, there would be a couple of
additional
other
shifting.
little wiggles and adjustments, but there absolutely has to be one removed out of the locket because the population is too great in order for us to meet the plus or minus 5%. So it'd be, it's less than 50, it's about 50 people. It's
Okay.
yeah,
191.
the one block that we did as a sample, I think contained 50
Go back
people,
a couple pages.
and it cured the problem.
So the recommendations, the first one is that we be kept whole in both the House and Senate so as not to disenfranchise any communities of interest within our rural county. If not kept whole, 2 would be to minimize the differences between the House and Senate to limit the confusion that will be created for the local redistricting process. 3, if not kept whole, ensure the county can create local election districts and comply with the requirements of the code section. And then anything else that y'all have concern with, but those are the main things. I realize we may not be successful in keeping us from being held whole, but again, if we can at least get number 2 and minimize the impacts.
And interestingly, they've given localities less than 2 weeks because the deadline for submitting written input is December the 20th, and it was advertised December the 8th. So it's a pretty quick turnaround.
So currently, Frank Ruff would be the larger Senate district would be included. We don't know who's 10.
Probably not that. Well, what I read is that there were multiple, like 40-some members of the General Assembly that were combined, and so I'm not sure that anybody knows who will be where because many of them were combined and drawn out of their districts. So I'm not certain there would necessarily be an incumbent in every district, or not. There could be multiple incumbents in. some districts.
What's clear is either option, Senator Peake would not be our senator moving forward. Because neither of those two options currently on the table has the area where he
Has
resides.
Lynchburg.
I think there was 3 in one place in Richmond.
Yes, sir.
They're
And
gonna
I
have to
heard
run
there was
against each
one
other.
that had no incumbent. There was one
Right.
new district, House or Senate, that,
Well, I don't think it's necessarily bad, though. Like you say, if we have 2 delegates working for us, I mean, I'd rather see it kept whole, but it's not necessarily bad.
I went from a county that had all in one to being split 3 ways. And it was hard to get the ear of anybody when you only had a small chunk.
Just
you
in a
know?
small portion of it.
Yeah.
You need any action from the board, just more or less information at this point.
Need some direction. There's some, again, recommendations or, at least a consensus of the board to direct me.
I think authorize the county administrator to speak on behalf of the board.
Yeah, I'm for leaving it whole, but that's my opinion.
That would be my first thought.
Where we get mixed up is working with some totally different counties.
Yeah, that's true. Is that the consensus of the board?
And some of the counties.
That'd be the
are-
direction then to,
Okay.
just to leave it whole
Thank you.
and come back to us if otherwise.
Yeah, I don't want Jerry to take 50 of my people.
That's right.
I don't want 51.
Can I hand pick 'em?
Get out
No, sir.
This may be a better deal than you think, huh?
I don't want 51.
Put a little more thought into this.
More work.
All right, 2022 legislative prize, 191.
So what prompted me, I believe that the chair and the vice chair and I have been invited to a meeting with the town manager and the mayor to meet with Senator and Delegate Edmonds. And going in, I think it's been a few years since the county put some priorities together, but wanted to have a few things to be able to talk about. The first thing is certainly the 1% sales tax. I think that's imperative that we're successful in trying to get support for that, help us with that elementary school renovation. The second, we just joined with CRC in lining up some term contracts. Those are where you have kind of blanket contracts that you can go in and you can ride. Right now, the Code of Virginia limits the amount of any one project at 150,000, and the total of all projects at 750. And I think, and there's a couple other counties that are going to propose this too, but we want to increase that to 500 and to $1 million. It just gives a little more flexibility. We've already gone through the procurement process, and while the state has these limits, it makes it tougher to engage. It gives us more flexibility. 3, FOIA changes. There are proposed changes to the Freedom of Information Act that would allow every citizen of the Commonwealth and representatives of newspapers and magazines with circulation enter into the Commonwealth to make 4 free 2-hour FOIA requests per 31 consecutive days. The bill would give 8 free hours of FOIA requests per person per month, or 96 free hours per person per year. Sarah handles our FOIA requests. She doesn't have, I can't imagine losing her for one person for 8 hours a month. You're talking about tying up time, and you're not able to recoup the cost of being able to do that. We do a lot of FOIA requests for free. If it takes her 10 or 15, 20 minutes to pull something together, we don't charge anyone. We don't do it for the newspaper. We try to be accommodating as we can. I just think somebody somewhere has had an issue, and they're trying to use a sledgehammer to fix it. And it's going to cost our county citizens money because you're going to spend a significant amount of staff time. And some of this, we get FOIAs from folks in Cumberland and other counties, and, we'll have to be responsible for coming up with staff time. The last one, this is funding for salaries for juvenile detention facilities. We hit some inequities here recently. Of course, the comp board funds part of the staff at Piedmont Regional Jail. And comp board gave bonuses for portions of the staff. Piedmont Regional Jail had to make up the difference. Well, for the juvenile facilities, they aren't covered by the comp board. They're covered by grant funding. And they're treated differently by the state of Virginia. But the problem is we're recruiting for both, but we're not treating them the same. So in essence, what happens is, in order to try to be more competitive at the juvenile facilities, is we have to come out of the pockets of the localities. Particularly when they're talking, Jerry, you can help me on this one. I know they're talking about like a 25% raise for new hires for jail positions and deputy positions next year, which is going to be crazy because that means that we'll have to give a higher salary to a person we just hired than a person that may be on staff for the last 4 or 5 years. And it's an inequity at the regional jail that we're going to have to address. But from a juvenile jail, there's nobody proposing any salary increases there. We just feel like the state needs to be equitable in trying to compensate, because the person who works at the juvenile facility really is doing the same job. Just
Absolutely, I agree with that. I think that's a good one.
And the other things, we're just trying to tag on to the items that the Virginia Association of Counties is pushing to support. But if this is agreeable and the board adopts this, so we'll at least have something that we can share with our senator and our delegate next week when we meet with them.
I support it.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, Ms. Pride.
Yes.
Myself as a yes, Patty.
Yes.
Beverly.
Yes.
Jim. Bobby. Jerry.
Yes.
And Lou.
Yes.
So
I
moved.
On the 1% sales tax, I see right many more localities have been
They're
added,
adding on.
I didn't realize. And, a lot, well, now, well, a good majority of them, a good part of them are Delegate Edmonds.
Counties.
Hopefully we got a good man pitching for it.
We do. He's been through the process before. The next item is just, again, specifically on us writing a letter to Delegate Edmonds about the term contracts, asking him either to carry or co-patron the bills, support that increase. Again, I think it's one of those that hadn't been changed in 10 years, and unfortunately, pricing and costs have gone up. We've got Timmons, we got a handful of different firms that are under contract, and right now our hands are tied because of the dollar limits.
So moved.
The motion made, is there a second?
Second.
The motion made and seconded, Ms. Pride.
Yes.
Myself as a yes, Patty.
Yes.
Beverly.
Yes.
Jim. Bobby. Jerry.
Yes.
And Lou.
Yes.
Next item is a financial advisory services annual term contract. Davenport has been financial advisors to Prince Edward County for a number of years. The County of Chesterfield issued a RFP dated February 1st, 2021 for financial advisory services. There's language in the RFP which allows other localities to basically ride that contract and use the consultant contract. Chesterfield entered into the agreement with Davenport for a period of July 1, 2021 through June 30, 2022. There's options for 4 additional one-year renewals. That's the quickest and easiest way for us to utilize those services. Otherwise, we have to put out the RFP and go through the process. So it saves us advertising cost and time of going through the process.
I move that the Board of Supervisors approve and authorize the county administrator to sign an annual term contract with Davenport and Company LLC to provide financial advisory services for a one-year period from December 15, 2021 to December 14, 2022.
I'll second
The motion made and seconded, Ms. Pride.
Yes.
Myself as a yes, Patty.
Yes.
Beverly.
Yes.
Jim. Bobby. Jerry.
Yes.
And Lou.
Yes.
Item 18 is Health Department funding request, and this has come to the Finance Committee. We've had tabled it twice. In the packet's a letter from Dr. Ullman requesting consideration of the return of a portion of unspent funding for FY 2021 amount of $25,763.34. That compares to last year, they had a balance of $7,906. They have stated they would like to use half of the funds, and this is, they've modified after talking with Dr. Ullman. They want to use half of the funds to purchase some outdated or broken medical equipment in the office, but they've agreed to take the other half of it and let us put it towards retiling the basement floor. That the health clinic, and Patty, you've been down there. I know we had some
Yes.
complaints about the cleanliness down there. Part of it is the tile's so old, it's hard to get clean. Plus, we have some pretty significant cracking that we've got to fix in the floors. Originally, I think it was in the project when they did the courthouse renovation. It got taken out for cost purposes, when they value engineered it. And it needs to get replaced, especially when you're talking about trying to be sanitary from a health standpoint, and you got a half-inch crack in the floor we're dealing with. So I, from a staff perspective, can support their request. And as part of that, they've agreed to help clean out some of the clutter down in the health department, help us get a little better organized down there.
So moved.
No motion made.
Second.
Jerry seconds. Ms. Pride?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Patty?
Yes.
Beverly?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Bobby?
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
And Luke?
Yes.
So moved.
Item 19 is a replacement of the courthouse telephone system. Currently, we've got a 15-plus-year-old telephone system, and we're looking to replace that with what's called a voice over internet protocol, or VoIP system. We've got 162 phone lines and 17 fax lines in the courthouse. We also may have to upgrade some of the cabling to Cat 5 or Cat 6. The proposed system will bring the office into the 21st century and improve departmental business processes by providing electronic document storage. Functional telephone system is essential to operations in the courthouse. We've had, over the last couple of weeks, at least 3 or 4 instances of phone calls being dropped. Randy Cook and myself have been working with the project on and off for the past 9+ months. As part of the discussion process, a total of 6 vendors were solicited to provide proposals on the projects. Proposals were received from Comworld, which is our current vendor. They're based out of Lynchburg. Connects, which is a local vendor. They're currently providing service to the Department of Social Services. Total Technology, ACOM, Granite, and Cisco. Cisco Systems just put a new system in Buckingham. And I will say, Cisco is Cadillac, top of the line. They do a great system. When you look at the cost comparisons, you'll see it is a more expensive system. Again, the summary sheet of all the bids is attached, analyzing purchase costs, installation costs, the monthly ongoing costs and savings in the current systems. One of the things going voice over IP, we get rid of a lot of the local charges for calls. It's going to save a lot in the long run. As proposed, the Connects, we are under 50,000, so we don't have to do a formal bid process. You can utilize solicitation of quotes to be able to meet the procurement requirement. Among the features included in the new system, it will be compliant with Carey's Law. Carey's Law is where it was a situation like in a hotel room with a child, and somebody was killed. To dial 911, you had to dial 9 first, and then dial 911, and the individual is not able to dial out. It will support 911 dispatch location information in accordance with Ray Baum's Act. That's where, say, Megan Clark makes a call from her office, they'll know it's not only in the courthouse, but it's on the second floor and where in the second floor it is. Rather than currently, someone makes a call, all they know is somebody from the courthouse made a call. System can act an emergency alert feature. So if there was an active shooter situation, say on the first floor, somebody could hit a button, every phone in the building would go off, everybody would know to lock down their area. So from a security standpoint, it'll be much more secure. We can provide connectivity to the visitor center and Piedmont Court Services for phone services. Currently, the visitor center is on a separate phone system. Being able to update the phones, the names, all that stuff will be a lot quicker. I'll say this, Connects being as close as they are, social services indicated they're extremely responsive, and when you have a service call, having somebody close. The folks in Lynchburg are great, but you still get an hour drive time. So we think this will greatly improve communications within the building and ultimately will save us money. The other problem is with a 15-year-old system, every time something breaks now, you can't replace it because they don't make the parts anymore. This was part of our capital improvement plan project, and it's replacement of the phone system. It was the 12th rated priority wasn't as high, but we did include that funding. So we've got funding in our capital improvement line that we approved with the budget to be able to cover the cost of this year.
This is less than we approved, right?
It is. Now, I will say, part of the motion I've suggested is to give the county administrator the ability to do change orders up to 10%. There are some systems, like I talked to a couple of the judges, where you could do a video phone. There's a couple upgrades, so we want the flexibility to be able to make some of those adjustments. Add conference phones if there's a room that needs a conference phone. The system has a lot more features than the old system we currently have.
What do we budget for this?
We budgeted 50,000.
Well, coming under.
10% will still be under.
Yes, sir.
We'll be under even with the 10%, so. All right, up to the board.
I move we enter in a contract with Kennex to upgrade our phone system in the courthouse.
Second.
And give Doug the leeway to make some changes.
Changes along the way. All right, there's been a motion made with Connect, with the, Doug to be able to make that. Been made and seconded, Ms. Pride?
Yes.
Myself is a yes. Patty?
Yes.
Beverly?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Bobby?
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
And Lou?
Yes.
All right, so moved.
A little different, but still, it's on the phone deal, but, obviously, Central League's getting difficult. If you don't contract with them, they won't put your number in the phone book. But wasn't there a way to, if you solicited them at a certain point in time, to include your numbers, that they had to do
Had to
it?
do it.
I know, and Mr. Wilk has pinged me on that a couple times. We're not. We've got like one or two numbers, I think, Jim, in the book. A lot aren't. We'll try to follow up. Obviously, we're getting there, new phone book will be coming out for too long. Sarah, do you remember that at all?
I know that one year we were successful.
Right.
And then the next year, they said absolutely not, even though they told us they would, they didn't, and when we followed up, they said no.
Okay.
So I don't know, I don't know if there's but I know that after the phone system we have now went in, we were wiped out of the phone
Right.
book, and it was a problem. And so we pursued it, and got us in the next year, but then from that point on, they were always pretty resolute about,
You want to bring it up with the people at Kennex and see if they know any avenue where?
Yeah, we can certainly try to do that.
They probably have dealt with this before, but, I went to, they get the treasurer's number.
Not there.
But I mean, you can, go online and find it pretty easy, but still,
Yeah.
some people like to look at the phone book, if you can read that phone.
Seriously. That's exactly right. All right, we're into the amendment for the zone ordinance.
So as we talked about earlier, we had an issue recently came up in reference to subdivisions whereby a proposed subdivision of a 100-acre lot for the purpose of planting timber was required of health department approval. Currently, the county required health department approval for all lots to ensure if it's used as a building lot later, that a septic system would be able to be constructed. The chairman has asked me to look at an amendment to exempt such divisions from that requirement. In my career, I've worked with ordinances with such an exemption with the caveat that it could not be used as a building lot without later health department approval. The reality is, if you perk a 100-acre lot, where you find the perk site, probably not going to be where you build the house because it's such a large building lot. So from a practical standpoint, I think it makes sense. The other thing is that, you're worried about making sure you can find a perk site on something that large, you'll find either a perk or an alternative location. In addition, we've added language to exempt subdivisions for widening or straightening of roads or the division of land for public utilities. With us talking about Sandy River, I think that's very apropos moving forward. If we divide a piece of property for a pump house or site, we don't want to have to perk that site. So there's, makes sense there. And also adding additional language to strengthen the requirement for family subdivisions, Right now, it's pretty much wide open. You could go in on each piece of property. I could go buy 20 different pieces and give a lot to my son and daughter for each of the 20 different parcels. And that's usually not the purpose of that. The purpose of that is if I'm a farmer and I want to carve off a piece for my son or daughter to live on the farm, that's why you have the exemption. But sometimes you'll see developers use it to avoid the subdivision ordinance. So just trying to tighten that up and make sure that we protect it for the reason that it's there, but place some limits on it. Robbie, and you've dealt with that before in previous work as well. At this time, we would have to refer this back to the planning commission. They'd have to have a public hearing and send it back up to you. They might change it, and then y'all might change it again based on public feedback, but at least we get the process started.
The family subdivisions, they don't have to live up to requirements of acreage too, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we refer this back to planning commission to clean it up, see if we can't,
Second.
Been made and second, Ms. Pride?
Yes.
Myself is a yes. Patty?
Yes.
Beverly?
Yes.
Jim? Bobby?
yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
And Lou?
Yes.
All right, Miss Chelsea. Economic development.
Good evening, and thank you for your time. On pages 245 and 376 of your package, you'll find my report, from which I will provide some highlights. In September, we worked with CRC to submit a joint application on behalf of Prince Edward, Cumberland, and Lunenburg counties to the Virginia Department of Housing and Community Development's Virginia Telecommunication Initiative, VATI for short, to request $15 million to fund a broadband expansion project, with Connex Telecom being the internet provider. This project consists of broadband fiber build-out in parts of Prince Edward, Cumberland, and Lunenburg. And I'm pleased to announce that as of yesterday's announcement, we found out that we have been awarded the $15 million. And so, just another note about that project, a combined total of $12,450,992 will be leveraged for that project. And this project will build fiber broadband to 11,397 unserved locations to achieve universal coverage in each of those counties when combined with other projects. So thank you for your support on this grant application.
Chelsea, if I could ask a quick question, what's the speed on that broadband that they're talking about?
I can get back to you with that. I don't want to tell you the wrong thing.
The RDOF requires 25 megabyte per second or higher download and I think 10 upload.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think that's much faster even than you're getting in town, Jim is.
What can we do about that in town? I have less than.
Well, I know the town is getting about $7 or $8 million in ARPA funding. I don't know what their plans are. Currently in town, you've got CenturyLink and you've got Shentel in some areas. The Shentel is faster than the CenturyLink in most cases, not all. Most guys bet each other head. But it's going to take an infrastructure upgrade in town to be able to do that.
I'm on the end of the line for CenturyLink, and so I've got less than 6. If you want to stream something on TV and whatnot, it's not fast enough.
Yeah.
Now, I hesitate to say that because I know Sarah's got 2.5, but I'm certainly not happy with 6.
Yeah, I think the rising tide may float all the boats eventually. But obviously, we're concentrating outside town limits in areas that don't have service at all. But, I think at the end of the day, you're going to see a lot better service. I think eventually it'll improve where you're at as well. Keep our fingers crossed.
And let's see, so in October, I submitted an application for the Virginia Economic Development Partnership's Virginia Business Ready Sites Program on behalf of Prince Edward for the HIT Park. And Timmons Group provided technical assistance for this application submission. As a part of this program, a request for $1,975,000 in grant funding was made to fund wet utility and transportation engineering design services to increase site marketability and attractiveness to prospective users while also advancing this site to Tier 4. And a follow-up virtual site tour took place last month, followed by an in-person site tour last week. Award offers for this program will be made in late December. And I also want to take this time to thank the board for your support on this grant application as well. We are currently working with the IDA to get all of the IDA-owned lots appraised to better market them to prospects and potential developers. Additionally, we've completed updating signage at the Prince Edward Business Park to better market these lots. Regarding tourism, we have convened meetings with Sandy River Retreat to coordinate the submission of grant applications for marketing and expanding their operations, including adding a distillery. Also, I'm pleased to announce that the part-time marketing assistant position has been filled. Lucas Goss began his position yesterday, and he brings a wealth of skills to the position. We're excited to have him on the team. Lastly, I have one more mention of good news. Prince Edward County has been featured in Travel and Leisure Magazine's article titled 12 Best Small Towns of Virginia to add to your travel list. In particular, the article highlights the Moat Museum and the High Bridge Trail State Park. And I've provided a copy of that article in your packets at the end of my report for your viewing pleasure, and I'll try to answer any additional questions if you have any.
Job well done.
Thank you. Thank you.
Go ahead, Joe.
Absolutely.
Yeah, can I offer a few comments about site visit? Actually, not to speak. Yeah, so first of all, I want to commend Chelsea and Doug for the on-site visit here, as well as Dr. Pride, who came to it, and David Emmert. What happened last week was a very, very big deal. Okay, we had a national site selection consultant, a top 10 in my mind. When they show up, you got a pretty legit project, KPMG. They certified the Greensboro-Randolph mega site, which we worked on. That just announced a $1.3 billion Toyota electric vehicle battery plant last week. Matter of fact, the same day we actually had the tour here, the announcement was going on. I had to miss that announcement. They did 14 site tours in Virginia. Okay, about half of those were Timmons Group clients, but that was out of, I think, over 50 applications maybe they received. So we made the cut for them. They also stayed here and had dinner and spent the night, and that's an added bonus. You get an opportunity to sell the community when you do that. So I worked with Doug and Chelsea. We had them come down to Taproot Tavern, stay in the Winoke Hotel. Cheryl worked out so we could go up to the rooftop and show them around Farmville and do a little toast there. And then afterwards, I was out having a drink with them at North Street Press Club, and they were just enamored with the community. And that's a big deal. So I told them, we want you, when you're touring around Virginia, North Carolina, come spend a night in Farmville whenever you're doing that with Prospect. And they said they would do that. So that was a huge win, a great job overall. One of the things I did want to mention about broadband, Timmons Group has actually just signed a contract with Mid-Atlantic Broadband to do what they call their middle mile fiber project, which is going to essentially fill in all the spots in the state that they currently don't have their system interconnected, which is going to connect Prince Edward County up through Louisa up to Culpeper. It's going to connect Blackstone over to Dinwiddie County. It's going to connect us down to the Microsoft data center site. And so that's going to help fill out this technology infrastructure, which makes the HIT Park really exciting. And I think it's safe to say, at least from feedback I got, Doug and Chelsea, that they really like the HIT Park site. I mean, I think they were very impressed with it, the energy story, the fact that we are going to have a water to it one day. Two things. This was setting up for next year's funding as well, too. So they only have $7 million today. Supposedly, Governor Northam has $150 million in his outgoing budget for the Business Ready Sites program. We've been working towards that for a long time. The Youngkin administration, some insiders have indicated they might go as much as $200 to $250 million, and the legislators are indicating $30 to $50 million a year after that. I would recommend, with y'all's permission to Doug, that when you meet with the legislators, you ask them to support the Business Ready Sites program, because that could help fund a substantial portion of the HIT Park and any other development that would take place in this county. So with that being said, again, Chelsea and Doug did a wonderful job. Chelsea provided a community overview, which was kind of an added bonus. They didn't ask for that. We talked about it. We did it. I think they were floored, and we really hit a home run last week that I think is going to pay dividends for many years to come from an economic development perspective for Prince Edward County.
Very good.
Very good.
Good job.
Thank you, Chelsea.
Thank you. Good job.
All right, Miss Cheryl,
Okay, sorry.
take your time.
I think the best part is we got Joe here for free because he had to be here for the other
That's it
stuff.
for that. We'll say that seemed to be a very profitable meeting there. Everyone that I talked to, and I'm sure that Doug and Ms. Pride, the same way, that everyone was very, very enamored with what
We
was
hit all
going
the
on.
marks. We really did with those guys. It was fantastic.
Yes, ma'am.
Finance and HR. So we're asking for the county credit card to be added to and getting a credit card for the building and grounds official because he uses our credit card quite often and maxes out the limit. So we're asking for the board to.
Get him off our cards.
Yeah, get him off our cards so he can have his own and max his out. So we're asking the board to approve an additional credit card with a $10,000 limit in the name for the buildings and grounds supervisor.
So moved.
Well, that was fast.
Been made and seconded, Mr. Pride.
Yes.
Myself is a yes. Patty?
Yes.
Beverly?
Yes.
Jim?
Yeah.
Bobby?
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
And Lou?
Yes.
So moved.
Excellent. So with my promotion to Director of Finance, we would like you to update the list of authorized contacts for the management of all county vendor accounts and financial accounts. For Doug as the county administrator, Sarah as the assistant county administrator, myself as the Director of Finance, Crystal as the finance manager, and then as additional accounts require Board of Supervisor action to change the county's authorized representatives. The board has provided authorization to the seated board chair and/or vice chair to approve such future actions, especially if it needs to be done between board meetings. The signature of the board chair, but sometimes a second board member are required. So there's a draft resolution authorizing the chair and vice chair to update the management of the accounts. And
So moved.
that was fast again.
Motion
Y'all
made. Is
move
there a
right along.
second?
Second.
There's been a motion made and seconded. Ms. Pride?
Yes.
Myself is a yes. Patty?
Yes.
Beverly?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Bobby?
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
And Lou?
Yes.
So moved.
So my last topic is our favorite COVID leave, public health emergency leave or COVID leave. Back in March of 2020, the board approved public health emergency leave policy of 160 hours. We amended the policy in August of 2021 to reduce the hours to 80 hours per leave year. We have attached a draft update to the county and that the most important change is that the 80 hours or a prorated amount for part-time employees would be effective that was approved effective 10 August, would become a one-time allocation, and once it is used, the employee would have to use other leave balances.
I got a question with that one.
Okay,
When is it cut? There's no cutoff? So no one used the leave and the rest of this, next year, so it run to 24? At what point do you cut it off?
that's a good question.
Mr. Counsel, that would be up to the board of supervisors, because ultimately the board has the authority over this policy. So what we're seeing is that, we think it would be fair to make this a one-time allocation versus an annual allocation. We think that the one-time allocation effective August 10 of 80 hours would serve the county employees. And so we don't think it's necessary for the board to renew that 80 hours on an annual basis. So the Board of Supervisors ultimately will decide if and when the public health emergency leave would be changed. And if you wish to make this a permanent part of the county personnel policy, or if at some point in the future you wish to eliminate it completely. But at this point, we're only asking that you change the annual allocation of 80 hours to a single one-time allocation, And once it is used by an employee, then that employee could use other leave balances as appropriate and as necessary.
I hear what you're saying, but they got vaccines out there. They got booster shots,
Yes, sir.
and
Well, and that's the point. So what we're doing
That's
is
fine.
we're stepping down the,
Going from 160
60 to 80.
and now we're saying that every employee received 80 on August the 10th. And if you've already used it,
you have to use your own. I understand clearly what you're
if
saying.
you haven't used it, your balance would carry forward. I think the biggest, probably, with the exception of people who are unvaccinated, who have had exposures and have quarantined, which is probably the single largest use. The people that are vaccinated sometimes have to use it because their children who are too young to stay home by themselves have had an exposure, and so they use COVID leave so that employees use COVID leave to take care of their families. But the majority of the COVID leave has been used by unvaccinated, so.
But they wouldn't get any more.
So they would not receive any more.
That's right.
Yes, yes, sir.
I was gonna say, I made the motion that as of, August 10th, if they've already used it, they have no more leave, COVID leave, and that they have a one-time up to 80 hours, and once that's used, there is no more leave.
There's a motion on the floor.
I'll second.
There is a second. Ms. Pride?
Yes.
And I'll be yes. Patty?
Yes.
Beverly?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Bobby?
Yes.
Jerry?
No.
Lou?
Yes.
All right, so 7-1.
I'll elaborate on that a little bit with some of my employees. My wife got it. Well, I had to stay home. My daughter got it. I got to stay home 2 more weeks. My son got it, stayed home 2 more weeks. I kept paying him. I said, when you come back to work? Well, I'm scared I'm gonna bring it in. And, 2 months later, they still didn't come back to work. And I see what you're saying. You can use your 80 hours, but you gotta draw a limit somewhere. If not, they'll keep going. It happens.
I think the reality is not many employees have had to use it,
Yeah.
but particularly with the young ones, and I know Chelsea's sitting over there, she's got a couple young ones. It can, particularly folks who are newer to the county, it can burn through their leave relatively quickly. But we feel like, just like, I think it was Jerry said, that vaccines out there, all the other precautions, so we need to start weaning off of it. And they can, once they got their own regular sick leave and annual leave, they can use comp time, they can use if they get that.
In case of your wife, she has been at it quite a while. Bobby, you in hospital twice?
No.
Once, but you were ill twice, had pneumonia and COVID. 80 hours adds up pretty quick.
Be interested to know how many hours we use by the county employees.
For COVID,
Because,
we can put that together.
Yeah, that Cheryl tracks that.
yeah.
Yes, sir.
We'll pull that and get it to you.
We have approximately 160 more pages. You all want to, anybody need a bathroom break or anything?
I think Karen would appreciate it.
All right?
If we could take a
We'll
quick
give you
break.
a 5-minute break, and then we'll be back to you.
Are you going to?
Candy break.
I'll bring it to you. I'll bring it to you.
Yeah, Jerry.
So see what else is left.
a few year-end summaries, and I'd like to start by introducing to y'all a young man whom I think a lot of. I met Marcus Ayub while he was a student at Hampden-Sydney and served on the Hampden-Sydney Volunteer Fire Department. He is a 2019 graduate of Hampden-Sydney, but while he, I believe, was still a student, we had Tropical Storm Michael. And Marcus was very involved in working with me and his department when we did the FEMA public assistance process back then. He is currently the assistant chief for the Hampden-Sydney Fire Department, and he is a he's career fire and EMS with Chesterfield County. When FEMA public assistance became an opportunity for the county after we had expended CARES Act money for much of our COVID expenditures during 2020, I reached out to Marcus and asked him if he would be willing to consider coming to work for the county part-time and help us manage the FEMA public assistance process. We were fortunate that he said yes, and I'm going to have him give y'all a summary of the work he's been doing for the county and on behalf of our citizens and our fire and EMS agencies during the ice storm, just so that y'all can see what he's doing.
How you doing?
How you doing? Doing well. Thank y'all for having me.
Mrs. Puckett always does the best job flattering me with an introduction. Thank you very much.
You're not required for the mask if you don't want to.
Okay, thank you. Speak a little more clearly here. So I'm just going to cover what I have been doing over the last several months. The two projects that I've been focused on have been the ice storm recuperation of funds that the county has spent on the declared ice storm this past winter and COVID vaccines. So I'll start with the ice storm. Our process has currently moved from working with FEMA to now transition to VDEM, which means FEMA has obligated funds, and we now have to work with the state to get the funds from the state. So the approximate reimbursement for the ice storm is $41,200. That will go back to fire departments and a small portion to the sheriff's office, and $2,100 additionally for management costs, which is everything that I cost the county in preparation of this. So 100% of what I've done will be reimbursed by FEMA. Yes, just reiterating, I'm 100% reimbursable. All the other expenses, we like that, right? All the other expenses have a 75% federal payout for the ice storm and a 25% match with the state. However, our volunteer hours, because we have a robust volunteer fire community, are going to cover that 25% match, and we will get 100% of what our requested reimbursement was. Just to reiterate, that was about $41,200. So while these figures aren't huge, I think one of the best takeaways on the ice storm is that I've been able to sit down and work with the fire chiefs on how to collect data, what data FEMA needs in the case of a future emergency, which inevitably happens. And that will provide better coverage so that the county is able to quickly jump on these FEMA public assistance grants and grant processes and get money back into the county for things that we are already spending. I'll run down what each fire company is going to get approximately. Company 1, Farmville, $2,500. Company 2, Hampden-Sydney, $8,500. Company 3, Pamplin, $2,500. Company 4, Prospect, $2,100. Company 5, Meharon, $13,000. Company 6, Darlington Heights, $6,200. Company 7, Rice, $4,500, and the sheriff's office had $337. The high-value reimbursement items included generators, because those ran pretty much nonstop while we were out of power, and large fire apparatus. The longer they were on the road, the more money we were able to get for that, anywhere from $88 to $137 an hour. So big difference between some of these fire companies and getting a little bit of money or a lot of bit of money is the apparatus that they had on the road typically. Everyone was out, everyone was working hard. It was a long, hard event. But it came down to FEMA's nitpicking of certain apparatus criteria. All right.
A little pat on the back to the volunteer firemen. A lot of them use their own personal vehicles, their own chainsaws. I mean, they really dove in it.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
They get reimbursed for that. That's out of the goodness of their hearts.
Absolutely. And that actually leads me into the potential for future reimbursement for volunteers that are driving their personal occupancy vehicle to a scene or using their own equipment. FEMA said we're not able to get reimbursed for any of that because the county is not actually spending county dollars on those items. So their suggestion was if the county wanted to at some point develop a policy that would pay for POV or by hourly for volunteers, that would then be reimbursable. Just throwing that out there as a suggestion from FEMA, something to consider for the future. All right, that wraps up the ice storm. If there's no questions, I'll move on to the COVID vaccine project. All right, so I've split this into two phases. Initially, we were told that 30 September 2021 was going to be the end date for all eligible reimbursement. That changed about mid-September. It was last minute. So we decided to go ahead and close out the project then, which we're still in the process of doing. This project seems to be a little more lengthy in every step. Our approximate reimbursement value is $49,500 plus $3,000 for management costs, my costs. And this project is 100% federal reimbursement. There's no state share, no volunteer hours required. The majority of the expenses that the county has had on the COVID vaccine project has been through public information, getting people out to get vaccines, boosters as well, and the PEFIA expenses, including rent and utilities. So we have an unknown end date. Like I'd said, it was initially September. It's now been extended and likely will continue to be extended until called off. We'll continue to work with FEMA as long as they're offering financial reimbursement. And that's about the gist of what I've done. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Sound like you've been busy.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for your time. Good job.
Thank you, thank you.
Take a load off Sarah and
Trey.
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 Thank you all.
Yeah.
Appreciate your support.
Thank you.
So item 2 is the declaration of local emergency. And in fact, the County of Prince Edward is operating under 2 declarations at the moment. The first one is for the burn ban. The local declaration was effective December 2nd at 4 p.m. And attached for the board's consideration is a resolution to affirm and continue the local declaration until sufficient precipitation reduces the fire danger in the county. Now, since this was written, and I'm going to give the board an option, in your table pack, in fact, and we worked with the county attorney this afternoon on page 419. There is a draft ordinance. It still requires the declaration of drought, dry, or parched conditions. So I would ask that you still affirm the declaration, but should the board wish to continue to pursue the burn ban and in fact give the sheriff's office the authority to enforce it with the ability to write tickets, I would ask you to also consider enacting the ordinance on page 420 as an emergency ordinance, which would put into place that ordinance immediately upon enactment
and give the sheriff's office, should it be needed, some teeth to continue to pursue. Now, the majority of the fires, and I'm going to say probably since we enacted the burn ban, I think between the sheriff's office and the volunteer fire departments, they've probably been dispatched 10 or 12 times. But the majority of those are citizens who were completely unaware, because it is very hard sometimes to share urgent news with our citizens through either the local media. Those of you who are enrolled in Everbridge know that we've done 2 Everbridge alerts. Trey has positioned the message boards. We've put it on Facebook. We've shared it and, put it out. The Farmville Herald has put it out. We've shared it with the radio stations, but still people are going to miss that. So the majority of the cases that have been responded to were citizens that were unaware. And so we're not looking for this to be a punitive action. However, sometimes there will be instances, if someone refuses to cooperate, it gives the sheriff's office a tool that if they need it, would perhaps be more meaningful, which would be the issuance of a ticket and a fine. And so thus far, and in our conversation with the sheriff's office, we've said that we don't want this to be punitive. We're just trying to make it safe for the public and for our first responders because of the fire danger. But sometimes there are instances when the sheriff's office needs a little more persuasion. And this ordinance, that if the board wishes to enact it tonight as an emergency ordinance, and we would also ask you to consider authorizing the advertisement of a public hearing for your January board meeting, so that we could in fact make this a permanent ordinance, so that if circumstances arise again in the future, the county administrator would have the authority to enact this ordinance as needed, and we would have access to it and not necessarily have to go through this process again.
So
Happy to answer any questions.
I move that we adopt that ordinance.
Second.
There's been a motion made and seconded. Ms. Pride?
Yes.
Myself is a yes. Patty?
Yes.
Beverly?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Bobby?
Yes.
Jerry?
Yeah.
And Lou?
Yes.
And Mr. Chairman, or Ms. Cooper Jones, do you wish for us to go ahead and authorize that, to bring it to public hearing at the
Yes.
January board meeting?
Please.
Okay, we'll just make that part of your motion. And then, Mr. Chairman, if you would go ahead and consider the attached resolution to affirm and continue the local declaration. The Code of Virginia gives the authority to the Director of Emergency Management, who is the county administrator, to enact a local emergency. But it also says that the governing body has to affirm that declaration within a certain period of time. So we'll go ahead and bring this to the board to have you all affirm the declaration as noted in that
Is it a
resolution.
consensus with the board?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is there anyone opposed? So moved.
Let's see, the last item for me is the continuity, two more. COVID, the local declaration for COVID was enacted on March 16th, 2020. It was amended April 7th, 2020, and affirmed by the board. The section 44, 146.21 of the code states the governing body, when in its judgment all emergency actions have been taken, shall take appropriate action to end the declared emergency. I'm not asking you to end the declared emergency. I'm just bringing it to your attention that you have that authority should you so choose. I think at this point with Omicron, with facing into 2022, and we're not sure the circumstances that will be created, this may not be the appropriate time, but just wanted to bring to the board's attention that you do have the authority to end that local declaration for COVID at your discretion.
Likewise, the continuity of government ordinance that was adopted back in April of 2020 and readopted in June of 2020 is the one that gave all of the special provisions in response to the COVID pandemic. Because the governor ended the state declaration effective June 30, the Code of Virginia says that our authority to keep this continuity of government ordinance in effect automatically terminates 6 months at the end of the declaration. So our local continuity of government ordinance will automatically expire December 31st, 2021, with no action from the Board of Supervisors. Now, I know there's been some concern about, I'm going to say the management of board meetings and other public meetings. The CDC guidelines can still be enforced at the discretion of the board for the social distancing and the masking requirements. So unless the board chooses otherwise, we would continue to encourage and require the mask for entry into the courthouse and the social distancing guidelines. And then the court certainly will operate under the Supreme Court requirements. Last item, as Marcus had mentioned, we have had great use of the Pefia Gymnasium. I've spoken with the president of Pefia this week a couple of times, Ralph Dews, and I believe the board had extended our agreement with them through the end of the year. We have received a request from the Piedmont Health District to consider extending that into 2022, especially given that we don't really know what the circumstances are going to be and what's going to be required. They've been using it this fall for both testing and vaccination clinics. The way the agreement with Pefia is currently written, it says that it shall automatically renew on a month-to-month basis after the expiration date unless either party gives 10-day notice prior to the expiration date or the last day of the month of its intention to not renew. So I think that it can continue. In speaking with Mr. Dews, and they just had a Pefia board meeting and specifically discussed this last week. They feel really good about the relationship that they have with the County of Prince Edward and would like to also continue working with us. So what we may do is sit down and talk with them about, I'm going to say, a longer-term agreement that maybe would be, for a year instead of a month-to-month in the event, something should be needed, and we'll come back to the board. But if the board has no objections, we will continue with the month-to-month agreement as outlined in that agreement that we have.
Sounds like a good deal.
And as Mark has outlined, all of those costs are reimbursable to the county through FEMA. And
That
then,
gives us a lot of flexibility.
yes, sir. And then, Mr. Chairman, Trey is going to provide you the monthly update.
Good evening, board. Good evening. In front of y'all should have found the update this evening when you got here. I'll make it brief and quick. It's pretty short. Your cases are outlined month to month here lately. We've been okay. There is a slight increase going on right now from the Thanksgiving holiday. Omicron variant is in Virginia. We're monitoring the spread and impact and outbreaks, of course, with Christmas holiday coming up and New Year's Eve. Right now, Prince Edward County on 7-day average is about 5 new cases a day. So not a huge uptick, but it is trending upward. Vaccination rates are below that. We've had a small increase in fully vaccinated. There are good booster numbers online. Don't have that data on here, but we have seen the booster numbers starting to tick up. So if you turn over to page 2, Virginia Department of Health will be hosting a testing event, PCR testing event at Pefia Gym on the 20th from 1 to 4. As y'all remember, past couple months, they've been doing this every week. They backed off and then they came back because of the increase in spread here recently. Sarah talked about the continuity of government. Your EMS numbers are on page 3. Public information, we're still working on finalizing a design for the second county mailer. I think Sarah was working on that today, finalizing some of the wording on it. We continue to use the signboards, Facebook, social media to push messages out. The last thing is we're currently monitoring the OSHA emergency temporary standard for vaccinations. Right now, it's on hold with the Court of Appeals for the Supreme Court, and we're just waiting to see what happens, basically what direction to go with that. That would be a pretty effective ruling if it comes out for us, because we do have more than 100 employees, so that would mandate masks, mandate testing, vaccinations, so forth. We're still supporting Virginia Department of Health at Peffia Gym, and we're maintaining situational awareness on the new variant. Any questions?
How does the hospital handle it right now? Because I just overheard a conversation, some people say, oh, they're jam-packed full.
It fluctuates daily. It's very fluid. Sometimes you can go in there and they're open, no problem. You can go in there 6 hours later and they're packed.
Okay.
There's really no rhyme or reason for the time of day or time of the week. Sometimes, back before COVID, you could predict weekends or maybe holidays, stuff like that being busier. Right now, it can be 6 o'clock in the morning, they're fine, and 10 o'clock that morning, 2 hours later, they're packed. So it's very fluid.
Bobby had a doctor's appointment this morning, and I asked the question, and he said it's pretty full right now.
All right, Ms. Terry.
Great place to be for the holidays.
All righty, we have in front of you the opioid settlement. As many of you know, it's become a problem throughout the nation, and so there's a proposed settlement that requires the distributors and Janssen to pay billions of dollars. Anyway, Virginia has entered into a settlement, and now they're looking for various counties in the state the subdivisions within the state to join in that settlement. Anyway, in your packet, there is the colored section of pages that goes through the whole, it was an hour-long seminar that they did, and this is kind of the PowerPoint that they had from it. But it gives you what the percentage from the settlement, that you'll get. So it's a guaranteed thing. And somebody had likened it to, not like the tobacco settlements where you had to vie for the funds. This is, set in by an agreement. So there's two parts to it. One is to authorize the resolution so that Prince Edward can get involved with the state memorandum of understanding, and then also the proposed settlement of getting those claims. And then also just to allow county administrator and/or the county attorney to sign whatever documents need to be signed in order to do those two things. I'll be happy to go through that PowerPoint and answer any questions, whichever the board prefers that I do.
Are there any questions?
Doesn't she have a 3-minute limit? It's like other
Absolutely.
We agreed to interact.
Hey, we can take, we do it on our own time.
I already read it.
Okay.
Yeah, I read some of it.
That'd only be fair.
All right, anybody have any?
So we need a motion.
Yes, there's a sample motion at the bottom, page 273.
All right, let me go back to 270.
Would you like for me to read that?
Can we read it? I'll do it.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead, Beth.
That the Prince Edward County Board of Supervisors approve the resolutions approving the county's participation in the Virginia Opioid Abatement Fund and Settlement Allocation Memorandum of Understanding and proposed settlement of the opioid-related claims against, is it McKesson? Cardinal Health, Amerisource Version, Janssen, and their related corporate entities, and directing the county administrator and/or the county attorney to execute the documents necessary to effectuate the county's participation in the memorandum of understanding and settlement.
I'll second.
There's been a motion made and properly seconded. Ms. Pride?
Yes.
Myself is yes. Patty?
Yes.
Beverly?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Bobby?
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
And Lou?
Yes.
All right. Thank y'all.
That's it?
That's it? That's it.
You still got 2.5 minutes.
All right, Doug.
As Chelsea mentioned, we got the $15 million VATI grant, and I just wanted to thank Chelsea and our partners, including Connects, Cumberland County, Lunenburg, the CRC, particularly Todd Fortune, who helped fill out the application for us to get that grant application in. Lowe's access issue, you may or may not know, we had an issue with the access for the corner lot there to the left of Lowe's. We've gotten that worked out. As part of that, we're going to be responsible just over paving the access road that goes in front of that lot to Lowe's. We'll get that done next spring, and I appreciate Chelsea and Terry for helping us get through that issue. Yak Attack, the annual report for their Tobacco Commission Regional Opportunity Grant Fund confirmed they met their interim performance data requirements of 15 jobs, paying an average salary of $32,058 and completed a $1.5 million investment. The final report will be required at their July 31, 2022 performance date. Solid waste building, the contractor has completed the erection of the building. At the landfill, staff is working on placement of conduit, and we'll be getting a vendor in to put the concrete floor in. We're buying the concrete, and they're going to do the finishing for us. If you get a chance and you're out there, stop by. David, you're probably most likely. Stop by and take a look at it. Outdoor signage has been completed here at the parking lot. If you noticed that on the way in today. Randy's done a good job with that, and we're in the process of probably about a little over halfway through on the inside signage. We're hoping to get that done here shortly. Convenience site, on Monday, the building at Tuggle was installed, and I believe Green Bay is going tomorrow, and hopefully Verso, if not at the end of the week, then first of next week. So we'll have all three of those attendant buildings installed. And lastly, stormwater, DQ was in the county last week to review a couple of our stormwater and ENS sites. They visited the Hampton City Science Building and Tharp Trucking Site on 460 East. And the only minor issues were identified, and Trey and Robbie accompanied them on their site visits. That's all I have, unless there are any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions? I guess, upcoming, the Local Government Institute and Government Day and Supervisor Forum is just information
Yes, sir.
at this point. Let Karen know if you plan to attend. 363 through 376, I guess, is just month reports, which is in your packet. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Any questions from the board?
A couple things on the table back.
Yep, we're gonna go to them next. All right, on your table pack, number 30, which is page 377.
So in the mid-2000s, the Away at Briary subdivision was platted. I think the roads were around 2005, 2006, somewhere in there initially. Currently, 3 homes constructed in the subdivision. The entrance road off of Route 15, Briary Way Road, was taken to the state highway system, except there's about 250-foot section before its intersection with Fire Trail Road that was not dedicated and taken to the system. And that forced the school buses and VDOT maintenance trucks to continue onto private property to the intersection to do their turnaround. Scott Frederick has sent an email requesting that the additional section be taken to the state highway system so VDOT can maintain that. The rest of the subdivision, a lot of lots are for sale. That's PRJ Land Trust, which Joe's involved with, his family. But it's really an issue for VDOT because they don't have a turnaround spot for their trucks. And they're requesting the board pass a resolution so we can get that process started.
I'll make that motion, that it be, you write them a letter and formal request.
Second.
It's been properly made and seconded. Ms. Pride?
Yes.
Myself is a yes. Patty?
Yes.
Beverly?
Yes.
Jim? Bobby? Jerry?
Yes.
And Lou?
Yes.
All right,
31's done.
yes.
So 32, PPA, Legal Financial Engineering Review Services. As part of the PPA process, the county will want to bring legal financial engineering experts under contract to help us review of the application or applications, if we get any subsequent applications, and potentially development of contract. We received a proposal from Hefty, Wiley, and Gore for legal services. I've worked with Bill Hefty in the past. He's one of the top experts in the state on the PPA process. They have proposed rates of $400 an hour, a flat fee of $30,000 for the entire process, soup to nuts. We believe the flat fee would be more economical at the end of the day. Legal services are exempt for the county's purchasing policies. Pannoni has provided a proposal to provide an engineering review of the proposals. The proposal would review the conceptual phase of the unsolicited proposal provided by the Prince Edward County Infrastructure LLC, and provide an opinion of its suitability and completeness in accordance with the guidelines for the lump sum of $7,500. It would also be available to review additional competing proposals if received. And remember, if we get a competing proposal, we'll get a $50,000 check from them as well, to match what we've gotten from the current group. Pannoni's estimate would take 21 days to review the application, which will allow it to be completed within the 45-day advertisement window. I've worked with Pannoni in the past on several review projects, including a septic receiving facility design. In this case, they had no connection with the project or other projects in the region. Professional services such as engineering competition is not required for contracts less than 20, so we're covered there. And then you all have already approved an agreement earlier tonight with Davenport. They're on the list as well. So as part of the PPA proposal, Prince Edward County Infrastructure submitted a check to the amount of $50,000, which has been deposited into a separate account. So any and all charges that would be incurred would be billed against that line. Again, the legal carries us all the way through the contract process if we go that far. The $50,000 is for the preliminary review. So the good part is we know exactly what that fee would be. But with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Are there any questions? Won't we entertain a motion?
Yep, I'd like to make a motion that the county administrator go ahead and sign the contracts with Hefty, Wiley, Gore for legal services and for Tony Farini for engineering services.
There's been a motion made. Is there a second?
Second.
There's been a motion made and second. Ms. Pride?
Yes.
Myself is a yes. Patty?
Yes.
Beverly?
Yes.
Jim? Bobby?
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
And Lou?
Yes.
I guess 419 is taken care of.
Sir.
34-month reports is just for your information, correct?
Yes, sir.
Is there anything else from the board? If not, is there a motion made to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, it's been made and properly seconded. Ms. Pride?
Yes.
Myself is a yes. Patty?
Yes.
Beverly?
Yes.
Jim? Bobby? Jerry?
Yes.
And Lou?
Yes.
Good deal.